25 شهر الخامس يوم 3 نفرات أبو حسين العراقي من دانكير إلى بريطانيا مع حماية خفر السواحل.
800 illegal migrants have crossed the channel over the past 3 days. When is the government going to get a grip? And also, is it now right to question whether this is intentional?
Indeed, you recently commented, Mr. President, that if it were not for the United States, European countries would be speaking German. Dare I say that if it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking French.
Was the state visit to America a success? Well, our ambassador to the United States, for the first time since that big visit, has been taken to American airwaves. His comments revealed shortly.
The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the strait will open up naturally.
And some big breaking news on Iran in the past couple of moments. President Trump has said US efforts to free up ships in the Strait of Hormuz will begin Monday morning. He says there's lots of vessels stuck in the strait and the US will work swiftly and imminently to free them up. Also tonight, 3 people are dead in suspected hantavirus outbreaks aboard an Atlantic cruise ship, MV Hondius. It's an Argentine ship. The WHO confirms an investigation is underway. One British national, aged 69, is in intensive care in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'll talk to a doctor later in the show. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning, welcome to The Late Show Live. Hope you've had a great Sunday. It's bank holiday weekend, so the fun's not over yet. Hopefully you've got some time off tomorrow as well. Joining me in Washington this evening is my panel. The former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, makes his big return. Hello, Niall. And US correspondent for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Hello, Victoria. And in London, comedian Paul Cox, Housewives' favourite. Hello, Paul. Thank you for your company. Right, let's crack on with the show. I'm about to give you my most brutally honest assessment of the small boats invasion of England ever. And it will upset all the wrong people, be warned. The government is spending 15 billion quid of your money, taxpayer money, housing illegal migrants between 2019 and 2029. 10 years, 15 billion quid housing these people. A country, I argue, which is serious about protecting its citizens would instead spend that kind of money stopping the invasion of its borders instead.
25 شهر الخامس يوم 3 نفرات أبو حسين العراقي من دانكير إلى بريطانيا مع حماية خفر السواحل.
That footage there is part of a convoy of mostly fighting-age males who have crossed the English Channel in the past couple of days. At least 400 came to Britain today on rubber boats. It followed 55 who came on Friday, 315 yesterday, and that's a total of almost 7,000 so far this year. 71,000, remember this figure, 71,000 since Keir Starmer took power in July 2024 when he promised to smash the gangs. Well, the only thing being smashed is Britain's borders. They are non-existent. And at this point, you have to start thinking if they actually want to stop the boats at all. Because how could a small but bold island like Great Britain, our great nation, which once ruled the waves and colonised the world, now be reduced to such a pathetic existence as being unable to stop rubber dinghies from crossing the vast English Channel? None of it makes sense. Unless, of course, the truth of the matter is they want them to keep coming. Now, why would a government want tens of thousands of illegal migrants to continue flooding its shores? Because they peddle the lie that these people who come from faraway lands and alien cultures, well, they say they can easily assimilate into our great nation and will all live happily ever after in a multicultural melting pot with GDP soaring until the end of time. Of course, they say they're doctors, they're surgeons, they're architects, apparently. But you only have to look to Finland to see the truth behind the propaganda. As immigration expert Simon Hankinson has written in the Telegraph newspaper today, many countries, including us, don't collect comprehensive data on migrant national origin that allows for comparisons, but Finland does. An analysis of that data by the Finnish think tank Suomen Perusta, which is linked to the right-wing Finns party, well, let me tell you, it's a sobering read. The think tank sought to calculate the so-called life cycle effects on the public finances of migrants. So what effect do migrants have on the nation's economy, particularly of asylum seekers and refugees born in Iraq and Somalia? And this report, the data, predicted that Somalis were the most expensive, with a net estimated lifetime cost of €951,000. Iraqis cost almost €700,000 each. And when the migrants' children were added, the figure for Somalis went up to €1.34 million each per person. So the lie that migration, even illegal migration, is good for the economy and these people will eventually be a net benefit is BS. So that's the economic argument debunked. But what we intuitively know is that was nonsense anyway. We don't need data to tell us that. So what is the real reason, do you think, that it appears this is intentional? Well, Simon went on in The Telegraph. He said, opinion polls all across the EU show that large proportions of voters don't want mass migration. We know that. I don't, you don't. But a combination of the left, corporate interests and migrant voters wins elections and maintains the status quo. Welfare-dependent newcomers, said Simon, clearly know which side their bread is buttered. A recent Finnish poll suggested that more than two-thirds of immigrants polled said they'd vote for left-wing parties, which of course generally favour more mass migration and universal welfare benefits. So the most generous answer to this illegal migrant mystery is that they are simply trawling for votes. The scam isn't unique to Europe either. Just look here in America. In Minnesota, 81% of households headed by Somali immigrants use some kind of federal welfare. 81%. That's compared to 21% for households headed by natives. Also in Minnesota and the US as a whole, most Somali American voters remain loyal to the Democrats. So maybe that goes to explaining why this has happened so easily in the United States over the past couple of years. Well, not any longer in the US, because President Trump has shown how easily you can control your borders if you want to, if you've got the political will. Joe Biden, the former president, he allowed anything from, well, 4 to 20 million illegal migrants to flood through the US southern border over 4 years. We will never know, though, the true figure. God knows. But President Trump closed the border overnight, at the click of a finger, shut. And I went down to the southern border with Mexico in Arizona last year to see exactly how they did it. Chris, we are literally out here in bandit country. This was the scene of where millions of migrants under Joe Biden would flood into America. I mean, President Trump thinks up to 25 million over 4 years. What's changed now?
We now have an administration that says, hey, go out and do your job. And if you do something wrong, you know, and you violate the law, you use excessive force, which you'll be punished for.
The British Empire used to rule the world. We ruled the seas with the Royal Navy. Feel better that you're backed more by the government in town?
Under the Biden administration was probably some of the most stressful time I say we, as American law enforcement ever experienced. We now have an administration that says, hey, go out and do your job.
So that's all it takes. It takes an administration, it takes somebody in the hot seat, whether that's the White House or number 10, to have the political will, and it's a word I use so many times and I'm bored of using it, but it is the most apt description, to make sure borders are shut. Whilst I was at the Mexican border, I also asked that guy there, he's a sheriff, he's a border enforcement official, I asked what he thought of the chaos currently taking place in the English Channel. British Empire used to rule the world. We ruled the seas with the Royal Navy. You know, we conquered lands far and wide, and now we can't stop rubber dinghies coming over from Calais. It just seems so incompetent. But you think at least here it was intentional?
I guarantee it's intentional over in the UK too.
What's happening on the southern border in England, our great nation, is a betrayal of Britain. One-in, one-out schemes, deals with France, money to France, and getting bogged down in intellectual debate about how to fix the problem. They are all distractions. It's time we started being honest with ourselves and what's happening to our country, because the truth will eventually set us free. Let me know your thoughts. GBNews.com/yoursay. For now, let's get the thoughts of political commentator Matthew Stadlen. Good morning, Matthew. Welcome back to the Late Show Live. Just your thoughts, please, on the absolute chaos again we've seen on the channel since Friday. 800 people coming to Britain. 71,000 since Keir Starmer took over. I don't know what the explanation is, other than it seems like somebody wants this to continue happening.
Well, that's obviously, good morning, that's obviously complete nonsense, because you know perfectly well, Ben, that in the real world, the Labour government knows the toxicity of this issue, and they know the potential price they might pay politically if they don't sort it out. They saw what happened to Sunak, and no doubt some of that was attributable to the fact that he was unable to get a grip on this. Clearly, Starmer has not succeeded in smashing the gangs yet, but, and I'll give you a few stats here, shall I? If we're talking about migration and illegal migration / asylum, let's get a few figures out there. UK migration data at a glance. So, net migration, 24 to 25, 69% down over 12 months. Immigration, that's people arriving here, 24 to 25, down 31% over 12 months. Emigration, people leaving, 7% up. Asylum applications, 4% down. Returns and deportations from the UK, 9% up over 12 months. And this is interesting, because we're talking about small boats specifically here. Arrivals by small boat, 1st of Jan 2026 to 30th of April 2026, down 42% on the same period of 2025. That may change. Listen, the government is certainly taking this seriously. Shabana Mahmood, who I think impresses many people on GB on your channel, she is making and has made refugee status temporary, so it will be reviewed every 30 months. I think. And this idea, I mean, it's a straw man. You're talking about our great history of ruling the waves as you see it. You know perfectly well that this isn't an invasion, Ben, because you know if we wanted to, and thank God we don't, bar a few psychopaths in this country, if we wanted to, we could blast all these dinghies out of the water. So to pretend that it's an invasion, that they're overpowering the Royal Navy, comparing today's Royal Navy to the Navy that ruled the waves hundreds of years ago, is clearly just some sort of rhetorical device that you're using to persuade people of your position.
Matthew, it's even worse than an invasion which has sunk our navy. It's just being allowed to happen. We sit there idle, bone idle, and we pick them up with our authorities and our ships. We don't try and fight them and fend them off and make sure they get back to France safely. We become taxi services and we pick them up and escort them to the UK, and then we put them in hotels, and then we allow them to roam the streets, and some proportion of them go on to attack our men, women and girls. So it's worse than an invasion, Matthew. It's even worse. 71,000 since Keir Starmer took over. Labour have deported around 40,000 illegals. A big chunk of those, by the way, low-hanging fruit such as the Vietnamese. It's the kind of people who do your wife's nails in the nail bar, causing harm to nobody. You know, these are not the people we need to be worried about. And yet, we are told, oh, we're going to give some more money to France. Oh, we're going to do a one-in, one-out scheme. We're going to have a talk about it and say that, you know, deportations have gone down so-and-so since this time. It is all intellectual bogweed which you're getting bogged down in. The fact of the matter is our borders remain wide open, and they've shown here in America what can be done overnight at the click of a finger if you want to do it.
Ben, millions of people in our country, and I'm talking about Britain, not America where you are, want the boats to stop. The government wants the boats to stop. It is its policy to stop the boats, okay? You're muddying the waters with your crazy conspiracy theories, suggesting that the Labour government somehow wants these people, there's no evidence for it, wants these people to come to this country somehow so that they can then vote them back into office. They're not getting the vote, these people. They're temporary refugees under this new policy. So you've got to deal in facts here. If you want.
So what happens after the temporary status, Matthew? What happens after the temporary status?
It depends whether their country of origin is safe enough to send them back to. You said just now that we
generally not, because generally not. So let's consider that most of them aren't getting deported. Most of them aren't getting deported because they pretend they're gay or they pretend they're Christian. So let's just, for the argument's sake, they're not getting deported. So what happens after this temporary status? They become eventually citizens where they can vote. And who are they going to vote for? As we saw in Finland, I explained it quite detailed in this report, when they vote, they will vote left-leaning, Democrat, Labour, the party that butters their bread. It's not hard. This isn't some intellectual conversation.
No,
none of it makes sense, Matthew.
Conversation. Well, sorry, this is a nonsense conversation because you're basically suggesting, it seems to me, that you say we're a taxi service. We don't allow people to drown at sea. I don't think you want them to drown at sea, so let's get rid of that nonsense idea. Let's take the next nonsense idea that you think that a reform government someday, if we're unlucky enough to have a reform government, are going to actually get these people, pick them up in the sea, or once they land on our lands, if they've not drowned at sea, and you think they're going to go and take them back to France? You seriously think that the British government is going to try and take migrants and asylum seekers back to France when the French say no? It's a total. We've been having these stupid conversations. There's nothing intellectual about it. Don't flatter yourself, Ben.
I never mentioned sending them back to France, Matthew.
For years, we're not getting anywhere. We're not getting anywhere. We look at reforms.
Precisely, we're not getting anywhere. We're not getting anywhere, Matthew. Every week we have. Every week we have these conversations. Oh, another 400, another 700, another 7,000 since the start of the year. You're quite right. Every week we have this conversation and we get nowhere. Which is, hang on a minute, which is precisely my point. I haven't mentioned Farage and reform. I haven't mentioned Farage and reform, but you're quite right.
You've got all the answers.
Just zip it for 1 second. Just for 1 second, Matthew, because I'm pushed for time. You're quite right. We have this conversation every week and nothing gets done. So you as a clever man, Matthew, after, well, years and years of this, under the Tories as well, isn't it about time you started questioning why we have this same conversation week on week? We have new policies week on week, different ideas, one in, one out, money to France, and nothing changes. None of it makes sense. So let's come to a different conclusion. Just maybe think for 5 minutes. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it. We'll
nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
Right. OK. There we go. Right, with me now is the Director for Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Hello, Rob. Thank you for joining the show. Your take on what you've heard over the past quarter of an hour.
Well, I definitely think that actually we do unfortunately have a government where Labour ministers are more than happy to see our borders completely eroded. I don't know exactly what the motivation behind that is, whether it is the voting element or whether it is just because it aligns with their worldview, which actually sees the nation state as nothing more than a stepping stone for them to pursue their own ideological pet projects. I'd argue that is probably more likely. When it comes to actually Labour handling this crisis, no, the asylum system is at record highs, record numbers of applications. They haven't gone down. They've hit record highs under Labour. The number of deportations, as you rightly pointed out, they're not going after the Afghanistan or the Eritrea or the Iraq. They're going after Europeans primarily and Brazilians as well. And, if they're illegal immigrants, then they should go. But it's not as if it's the sort of the cutting edge of where this debate actually is. And they are doing a lot to actually massage the numbers and pull the wool over the eyes of the British public when it comes to what's going on. The idea of we're going to close hotels, that to a lot of people is giving the presentation of we're removing these individuals from the country. No, they're going into HMO. So I think actually this whole conversation is being bogged down in these kind of technicalities and PR gimmicks, which the Labour Party are very, very good at when it comes to this issue. All the while, we're approaching 200,000 having come across the channel. And, once they do get refugee status, ILR, citizenship, they will be able to vote. So, that is then for, they will be considering who did butter my bread at that time.
Yeah. Interesting. Let me bring in Senior Research Fellow and Immigration Expert at the Heritage Foundation, Simon Hankinson, who wrote some of that piece I quoted in the Telegraph today. Simon, great to have you on the show. That data, the report from Finland, was fascinating. Just elaborate more on it, please.
Well, the Finnish have found the same thing that other countries who have analyzed this have found, which is that on balance, people who come in as refugees or low-skilled migrants, meaning not the rocket scientists and the doctors, but manual laborers, people who have no command of the native language, over a lifetime cost a varying amount of money. For example, Somalis, on average, cost very close to €1 million over a lifetime to the taxpayers in Finland. And this is pretty much true across all countries. And it tends to be the same countries that whose immigrants cost more money and often commit more crimes as well. So each country that accepts people kind of has to accept this long-term fiscal consequence. You have 500 people arriving one day or 400 in a boat in Britain, then you're going to have to imagine their families coming later on. That's going to be a net fiscal cost to the taxpayers of Britain of billions.
Do you think, Simon, countries, not just the UK, across the EU, do you think countries want to stop this?
Well, countries, meaning their governments, often know, because the governments either think that these people are going to vote for them in the future. You know, they want to have, particularly left-wing governments, want to have everybody tied to the state for all of their benefits, for everything that they get. And the more people that are dependent on them that they bring in, the more voters they'll have in the future. I think the people on the whole across Europe, and you're seeing this in election after election, have really had enough. They've had enough of rapid cultural change. They're not bigots. I don't think they're racists. I just think they prefer to live in a country where they feel at home, and they're voting accordingly.
Okay, Rob, last word to you. You hear the kind of stuff I've been talking about, saying that the only logical explanation is, and this is being generous, is that maybe they're just harvesting future votes. They saw it in the United States. That is a general conclusion from the United States government here and what we saw under Joe Biden. However, people like Matthew Stadlen, and I'm sure others watching this when it gets clipped up, will say you are a bunch of conspiracy theorists. You are crazy. There's no proof for that. There's no evidence.
Well, I think it definitely is leading to silos in society, and whether that means that individuals that are coming to the UK are going to directly vote for the government that let them in, or whether actually the wider repercussions of a society that's fractured and lost all sense of itself makes it a lot easier for charlatans like Zach Polanski, for instance, to come up through the middle and maybe build together some kind of electoral coalition. I think whatever happens, whichever way it sort of leans to, it does actually end up having long-term consequences, and it basically, whichever way you put it, is bad for Britain.
Okay, Rob, thank you very much. Rob Bates and Simon Hankinson as well. I'd urge viewers and listeners to go on the Telegraph today and try and read Simon's column if you can. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. gbnews.com/your say. Lots of comments have flown in. A bit pushed for time, so I'll read them after the break. Still ahead, though, on The Late Show Live tonight.
The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the strait will open up naturally.
Breaking in the last few moments, President Trump has said US efforts to free up ships in the Strait of Hormuz will begin on Monday morning, Middle Eastern time. Speaking of the president, he's heading back to the White House as we speak. He's going from, I think he's been in Miami actually, lucky him. We'll bring you the live pictures of that and any comments he makes on the tarmac. These are live pictures from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, where he should be landing shortly. More after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there.
With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
To the Late Show Live, Iran has sent the US a 14-point plan calling for the war to end within 30 days. The proposal, a rebuttal to the US 9-point plan, reportedly demands sanctions relief, an end to the naval blockade and US forces withdrawing from the region. Crucially, no mention of nuclear disarmament, though. But the US says efforts to free up shipping through the Strait of Hormuz will begin Monday morning, Middle Eastern time. President Trump has said he's reviewing it, but has already cast doubt on whether a deal can be done, and he went on Truth Social a bit earlier this evening to say the US would begin an effort to free up ships stranded in the Strait, which basically means, he was saying, and this is quite interesting actually, that various ships and vessels have been stuck in the Strait for months on end. And if you bear in mind the human cost of that, sort of the seafarers, the crew, the captains and so on, they've been stuck on those vessels for a long, long time. So the President tonight is saying he will help them finally free themselves from the Strait. Right, and I think President Trump, he is due to land at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. These are live pictures. Is that Air Force One? Yeah, it is Air Force One. Niall Gardner's here and Victoria Churchill. Hello, good evening. Niall, Iran, I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of over Iran actually. Until something happens, until they send a load of B-2 bombers back over or they announce they have signed a deal, I'm just kind of...
Well, you know, I think firstly, you know, with the Iranian regime making these demands, it's a bit like Hitler making demands from his bunker in May 1945, basically. It's absolutely ridiculous, really. And I think that the longer this goes on, the greater the chances are that the United States is going to respond with overwhelming military force. And rightly so. I think Iran's rulers deserve another wipeout, frankly. And they've been incredibly difficult to deal with. They're arrogant, they're living in another parallel universe, and another round of large-scale bombing, I think, will focus minds. And the United States could easily eliminate another 2/3 of the current Iranian leadership. So, you know, they're literally playing with their own lives here. And if they had any sense, they would actually negotiate in good faith, end their nuclear program, reopen the Strait. But we're dealing with Islamist fundamentalists, actually, who really, you know, frankly, are impossible to deal with. And I expect there's going to be another wave of large-scale US bombing against a very wide range of Iranian targets. I think that's inevitable, frankly, because you can't negotiate with these mad mullahs, basically.
Well, he is trying to negotiate. He's being a lot more patient than I would be.
He's being incredibly patient. I think patience is going to run out, and you know, you can't deal with these people, frankly. I mean, they are completely unreasonable. And I expect that the US will return to military action soon.
Okay. Victoria, are you of that train of thought? Also, where's the President been this weekend?
He was down in Florida. I know he took in some golf. There was actually somebody that tried to enter his property just this weekend down in Florida. Again, not sure if it was anything extreme, but...
Somebody got arrested, didn't they? Trying to enter his golf course?
Yes.
Did they not have a scrap with Secret Service?
I believe
some sort of fisticuffs and he was arrested?
Yeah.
We should see the President actually leave Air Force One any moment now. So in terms of his big week ahead, look, he's coming back from Miami, he's been playing some golf, he's back to business with the Middle East. What do you see happening from here on?
Yeah, I mean, again, he's looking at a China trip in the next couple weeks. You know, he's planning to meet with Xi and the like over there. So I think he would like to get everything on this front in the Middle East wrapped up before he turns his attention to that trip. And of course, that trip has already been delayed. I think in part probably due to the Iran war and, you know, going beyond the 4 to 6 week timeline that we heard originally. You know, of course, Ben, you mentioned that you're over it. I think I'm over it. I think a lot of the American people are over it. gas prices are above $4 a gallon in many places, creeping closer to $5.
Well, I say I'm over it. I'm not over the economic impacts, i.e. gas prices here, although I don't know what Americans are moaning about really, when it's the equivalent of 70 pence a litre in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're crying about.
For us, it's high, right? And
Yeah.
so, when you're
UK
looking ahead into the summer travel season, we're all going to be impacted. Even if we want to go 3 or 4 hours down to the beach, that's going to be a lot more expensive than it was last year. And, of course, right now we have primaries and we have, the general election coming up in November, and economy is supposed to be a winning issue for Republicans, which right now people are feeling the pinch.
No, I'm only sort of jesting when I say I don't know what you guys are complaining about, because gas is $1.40 higher than it was before the war started. Initially, they said it was short-term pain for long-term gain. I back the conflict with Iran. I think we need to get rid of the Islamist despots, not just in Iran, but all over the place, all over the world. But yeah, I think it is taking arguably longer than maybe they thought. Paul Cox, let's get your thoughts as we wait for President Trump to disembark Air Force One after his golfing work trip to Florida. What's your thoughts, Paul, on Iran? Are you over it as well, apart from sort of the economic impacts of it? I know that's a serious side of it.
Am I over it? I'm not over it, Ben. I think that it's something that's rumbling on in the background. You and I, everyone on this panel, good evening, Niall and Victoria. We deal with the news is in front of us. We deal with the news cycle, so therefore we probably haven't been too engaged with it for a week or so. But obviously it's something that's going on. It's something we have to keep an eye on. I tend to agree with Niall on this in the sense that I don't think this is going away. I can't see how Trump can just let this one go, and I don't think he ever would do either. So I think Iran are either going to comply or there's going to be big problems. And those big problems will have ramifications for us all, I'm sure. I'm still just getting over what Matt Stadlin said earlier, by the way. Well managed, Ben. That was an incredible interview. We should put that up and teach it in schools. He's like the poor man's Rory Stewart. It's unbelievable.
What did he say? What did he say to me that shocks you? I can't really remember.
Well, he just continually obfuscates the problem. He thinks that Labour are taking it seriously, whilst at the same time evidently not doing anything about it. Now, of course, Labour are taking it seriously because they want to protect their votes, but they're not doing anything about it. The person they put in charge now, Shabana Mahmood, is talking the right mood music, but she's not doing anything, and she'll be gone at the next cabinet reshuffle. They don't want to do anything. They're going to knee-jerk panic towards the left now. Matt Stadlin has become this, unfortunately, he's an intelligent man, but he's become this internet troll who started to believe his own hype. And because he gets paid to believe his own nonsense, he believes that's validation for the nonsense. Matt remains, I'd imagine, relatively unaffected by the issues as well, I would say.
Well, look, Matt's not here to defend himself. I mean, if Matt's still watching, call the producers and come back on and have a round with Paul. By all means, it'd be great to tell you. But I would say I completely disagree with Matt on pretty much most things. However, I respect his right to think it because that's what the channel is all about, and I don't want to sit here for 2 hours, 3 hours now, in an echo chamber, nodding my head like a Churchill statue. Like a Churchill car insurance statue, and yeah, agreeing with people who agree with me. I don't think there's any fun in that. Actually, it's quite boring. But yeah, I mean, my point being was on illegal migration. President Trump overnight, yes, it's different countries, yes, different laws and so on, but literally at the click of a finger, he closed the border. None of this, oh, well, we need to consult lawyers, or maybe we should look at international law, or why don't we give Mexico some money? Maybe if we give Mexico £500,000 over 4 years, maybe they'll try and stop it, or, you know, maybe if we do one Mexican in, one Mexican out, that might work. Just none of that nonsense, because, again, I keep saying, all that stuff, I argue, is a complete distraction. You're not getting to the source of the problem. And what Trump did, overnight, literally, he did what he was voted to do, which is close the border, and he did it. And it's so easy. And it just annoys me that we are watching our country go down the pan. We're allowing a good cohort of people who come from alien cultures, from goodness knows where, we don't know who they are, what their intentions are, and even one rape, even one murder of a poor lad in, I think it was Portsmouth some years ago, even one sexual assault is too many. It is a dereliction of a government's duty. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the rhetoric, I'm sick of the conversations, the silly ideas, the silly policies. Will this work? Hopefully this will work. Let's see how it goes 6 months. Oh, another 10,000 have come. Enough is enough.
Yeah, Ben, I totally agree. Look, in a world of possibilities in the resolution of this problem, if the world is this entire screen, this phone is the paradigm and convention in which the left will argue this, okay? What I mean by that is we have had one way of trying to crack this nut for the last couple of decades. It has clearly failed, and we are now hamstrung by human rights lawyers, one of which is a Prime Minister, and by the ECHR, which is interpreted differently by those human rights lawyers than it is across Europe in many respects. If you just look at the Baltic countries, because of the way they are associated with Russia, their previous invasioner and oppressor, they handle the ECHR in a very different way, because they understand that if you allow illegal immigration into your country, it's a form of soft hybrid war. It's what your oppressor, what your enemy will do. Our enemies must sit back now, look at this country and think, we are easy pickings. And then they see people who are, you know, very well represented, incredibly well represented. My voice, your voice, Ben, and you're absolutely right about not sitting in an echo chamber. But our voices are, in the grand scheme of things, much smaller voices than the other voices. They really are. So we get an opportunity to speak like this, and I think that's incredibly important, and there is more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah, indeed. And also when people say it's not an invasion, yeah, you're right, it's not an invasion, it's a surrender. It's even worse. You've just gone down with a whimper, not even bothering to try and sort the problem out. Paul, thanks very much. Hang tight. We're going to move on slightly. We'll keep on these pictures because we're waiting for President Trump to disembark Air Force One at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. He had quite the week, didn't he, President Trump? He had, well, the shooting incident last Saturday, the attempted assassination on his life, again for the third time, and then the King arrived. Was the King's high-stakes visit to the US, what do you think, viewers and listeners? Was it a diplomatic win or a risky gamble? And there is the President himself. He's come out of Air Force One, the sun beaming down on him in Maryland. Aides say that King Charles grasped the challenge, delivering a Congress address. And there's Don Jr. with the President as well, his son. Is he carrying his dad's bag? What a good boy. Good son. Well done, Don. The President will be heading back to the White House very shortly. He'll be getting into Marine One helicopter, flying the 15 minutes or so from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland to central DC. Quick salutes of the military personnel there, and off he'll pop. It's been a busy week for the President, and the question remains about the King's visit. I think generally it was a roaring success. Christian Turner, who is the British ambassador to the United States, he appeared, as we just struggle to get these pictures, he appeared on Fox News this morning on their breakfast show, talking about the, let's look at the pictures again, talking about the success of the royal visit. He said it was a roaring success. He said he think the King passed what was the most stern, most serious and most challenging diplomatic test of his reign so far. And let's just get the thoughts now, before I show you that clip and we watch the President coming back to the White House. Let's get the thoughts of Jack Stokes, who is the former senior gardener to King Charles at Highgrove for 20 years. Jack, good morning, thanks for your company. What was your assessment of the royal visit? President Trump there, I think he had a great time. Do you think the King had a good time? Was it a British win?
I do think it was. Hi, thanks for having me on. No, we did see that. You know, we saw that the King wasn't invited to come and celebrate with the people of America, and he did exactly that. So he came out. We saw everywhere he went, crowds came and saw him. He was very happy to meet people, talk to people, and as was the Queen. And that was so fantastic to see them both out doing what he loves to do, you know, coming out and showing that, you know, Britain needs America just like America needs Britain. And that was why he was there. And I think it is exactly what he achieved.
What is the metric of success for the King this week? What was the highlight, do you think? What was the sort of bombshell moment where royalists, monarchists thought, well, yeah, this is it. This is a job well done?
I do think it was the speech that he gave with all of those standing ovations, a speech that was meant to last for not very long, that ended up lasting for half an hour because he had to keep on stopping and starting. But, you know, he's come away, and since coming away, there's been a hell of a lot of good publicity that's come out in, you're seeing on social media. People are saying, I didn't know if I liked the king, I now love the king, I didn't know if I liked the queen, now I've seen what the queen does and what they both achieve together. And I think, you know, that is fantastic. It's being able to show the royal family for what the royal family do for us and for the country, wherever they are. We see people turn up in droves to see them. I mean, people just now are loving the family. And what's been so great is we're seeing all of this amazing press coverage, and all of it actually being quite positive. So the focus is now fully back on what the king is doing and trying to achieve.
Yeah, Jack, I thought his speech to Congress, the King, was a little bit too political for my liking, but I then thought afterwards, do you know what? The King has always been political. He talked about the Rwanda plan and Boris Johnson. He criticised that. He's the OG of climate sort of concern. He's an OG environmentalist. So yeah. I kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt there, and you know, I think he did a great job. And the president, who we're just seeing now taking off from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, I think it was very clear. He's got such warmth and affection for the king and indeed the royal family. Just finally, Jack, looking ahead to the king's schedule, what's he up to in the coming weeks? Do you know any sort of big plans on the horizon?
You know, I'm hoping he's actually going to come back and be able to sort of find some time out, go to Highgrove, be able to sort of take some time out in his garden there. But the problem is with the king, he never quite just stops. He might come back and be out very early the next day, making sure the birds are fed, you know, making sure the things that he wanted done in the garden are done. But I think maybe that's his way of winding down for a few days, and I'm sure he'll be straight back into work. I say today, but it's a bank holiday, so maybe tomorrow.
Okay, Jack, thank you very much. Really appreciate you being on the Late Show Live. Please come back when you can, and have a great week ahead. Enjoy your bank holiday. Jack Stooks, former senior gardener to King Charles at Highgrove for 20 years. Victoria, you were in Congress for his big speech.
Yeah, it was
lucky
really.
Devil.
I did luck out. I've now got a new screensaver on my laptop with me. I got to be front row.
Nice.
You know, we've recently at the Daily Mail we've launched our DC Insider newsletter, where we kind of do a little POV section on a highlight of the week, and I got to be the highlight of the week last week, talking about literally having a front row seat to history, which was super cool.
Tell us then. We see President Trump taking off now for the White House. How was it being in there?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, definitely once in a lifetime moment. It's only the second ever time that a British monarch has addressed Congress. Of course, his mother, the Queen, was the first. But, you know, all over DC, Virginia, all the way up to New York, the king got warm reception. You know, you were talking about Trump, of course, being a fan and friendly with the king. You know, the other side of it was Melania. I mean, just that first greeting at the White House for their arrival, she was smiling, and, you know, she does tend to be a little bit more emotionless at times. And so I think that just really goes to show the warmth and depth of the relationship. But of course, you mentioned the king got a little bit political in Congress. One of the things that I pointed out in my post coverage of the event was that actually some of the lines seemed to get more reception, warmer reception from Democrats than Republicans.
Well, yeah.
Which you would, you know, think it would be kind of the opposite. You know, the Democrats, of course, they had their No Kings protests. They've had at least, I think, 3 dates where they've had No Kings protests. And so, of course, at the Daily Mail, we had to make fun of them a little bit, that there was all of these wonderful people that had said, no kings, no kings,
I think
and they loved the king.
They loved it when the king was saying that you need power, checks and balances on executive power, which was a direct barb at Trump, I guess. Niall, where were you during the visit? Were you at the garden party, at the ambassadors, or?
So it was not at the garden party. I was at the White House for the arrival ceremony of the king on Tuesday morning, which was absolutely magnificent, and spent much of my time on US TV networks, especially Fox News, doing analysis of the of the week's visit. I think a magnificent triumph for the king. I think also a glorious moment for the US-UK special relationship, and the king really outshone, of course, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, needless to say, and I think the king actually did very well, really. I mean, he really demonstrated that he's up to the job. He's also clearly liked and loved by the American people. We saw that on multiple occasions. And he gets on very well with President Trump. And so there's real warmth, I think, between the US president and the king. And so I think this visit could not have gone better in any respects at all.
Yeah. Great. Proud to be British.
Absolutely.
Proud to be American, Victoria?
Proud to be American, but again, obviously a very big fan of the special relationship now that half my family is British.
Especially now you met me, 6th September. Right, there we go. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight, 3 people, really sad story actually. You go on the holiday maybe of a lifetime and you get ill. 3 people are dead in a suspected hantavirus outbreak aboard an Atlantic cruise ship. The WHO, the World Health Organization, confirms an investigation is underway, but one British national, aged 69, is in intensive care in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'll talk to a doctor in just a tick to give us the latest. Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis.
In the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there.
With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead. Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change, from the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Does Chopper need a coffee?
A British tourist is being treated in hospital in South Africa tonight following a deadly outbreak of hantavirus on a cruise ship. And hantavirus is a respiratory illness. It can be quite severe. The outbreak was reported aboard the MV Hondas cruise ship, which is travelling from Argentina to Cape Verde. And 3 people have sadly died on board. NHS GP Basha Mukherjee joins me now. Basha, great to see you on The Late Show Live. Thanks for staying up with us. First things first, what is hantavirus? I've actually never heard of it. Excuse my ignorance.
Yeah, so it's also, I had to look this one up as well. It's not something that we regularly come in contact with for sure. It's actually very rarely transmitted between humans, but it is well researched and well understood. So it's nothing new as such. However, it is something that the WHO is looking into because it is generally picked up from rodent feces and urine. So the question really is how these people on this cruise ship came in contact with rodent feces. Essentially, you'd have to get in contact with their feces, either their nests or something like that. So either that's in the ship or it's on some of the areas where the ship might have stopped.
Wow, I mean it's just it's concerning. Bearing in mind 3 people have died, but it's quite. I mean, is that a hygiene issue for the ship? It sounds disgusting.
Well, this is the thing. So we're not going to know until an investigation is thoroughly carried out. It could very well have been the case that, during the excursions on land, for example, depending on where the actual human participants in this case, where they actually walked, maybe they stepped on something. What's really interesting is how quickly this has spread to multiple people, and also with the ship being in an enclosed space with shared air conditioning and ventilation. It's a question about whether the rodent infestation could possibly be in the ventilation system as well. What they're also might be thinking about is if this is one of the very rare forms of hantavirus which can be spread from human to human, which they've only really found a strain in South America for. So that will be really interesting to find that out, really.
Just getting some more breaking information now. So a 70-year-old passenger became ill on the ship and died on arrival at St Helena Island, which is, that's according to a South African health official. The man's remains are now awaiting repatriation to the Netherlands. The man's wife, the deceased man, who was 69, she also became ill and died in hospital in Johannesburg. A South African official says that the couple who died, sadly, were Dutch. Yeah, it's just awful. You go on what maybe is the holiday of a lifetime, or at least a very privileged and should be a great holiday, and you end up like this. It's a respiratory illness, Basha. What would the symptoms be, and I guess how bad does it get before it gets fatal?
I will say that these 2 patients, I'm so devastated to hear about them. They are in the older age bracket, which puts them at slightly higher risk. We don't have information about what existing health conditions they might have had. Of course, with regards to any illnesses and viruses, if your immune system is weakened by being elderly, by having existing health conditions like we saw with COVID, the risk is much higher in terms of your outcomes. However, when picked up quickly, really, treatment can be initiated, as is being done with the 69-year-old who's currently in ICU. I will say, at the moment, so far, the worst affected people have all been over 65. And, again, without information about exactly what existing health conditions they had, it's really difficult to say, and also what strain of the virus they might have picked up. But with respiratory illnesses, generally speaking, it's going to be breathlessness, cough, and temperature, things like a typical viral infection, except that obviously in this case it's been fatal.
Yeah, awful news, really sad. That poor family, the friends and the relatives of that poor Dutch couple, and indeed the 69-year-old British woman who's in Johannesburg, we understand quite ill. We send our thoughts and best wishes to them. Basha, thank you very much for staying up with us. Really appreciate it on The Late Show Live, and have a good bank holiday. The UK Foreign Office said they're monitoring the situation and ready to provide support. They said we're in touch with the cruise company and local authorities, and the WHO has confirmed that 3 people have died following the suspected outbreak. 1 case has been confirmed, with 5 more suspected cases under investigation. Paul Cox, do you want to have a very quick look at the front pages? Is there anything on the front pages tomorrow which has caught your eye? What about Britain told to pay £1 billion a year to the EU after reset? I think we've got a minute or 2, Paul.
Well, that's a proper Ponzi scheme, really, isn't it? I mean, let's discuss that very briefly, Ben. Absolutely right. This is a Prime Minister that has no He has no jurisdiction whatsoever to help us in any way rejoin the EU. Nobody's asking for it. Certainly it wasn't within his manifesto. There aren't people out there clamouring for it. And in doing so, he seems to have done so at a cost of £1 billion a year, if the Times are to believed. And that, by the way, should that be true, that's infinitum. That will go on forever. We often talk about the fact that one government can't tie another government to its own policy. When you sign up to EU policy, you're signing governments in for decades. It's very difficult. I mean, Brexit was 2016, believe it or not. This is now 2026. We're still having some of the same discussions, and the same people that never wanted us to leave because they actually don't believe in democracy are still hanging on to the idea that they can do all they can to stop it because it's not good for us, and they're telling us so, Ben.
Yeah, they're still trying, aren't they, Paul? They're still trying. Niall, what's your quick reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely outrageous, isn't it, that the UK will be paying more money to the European Union. And I think that this whole idea of Britain subsidising, the EU's, loan to Ukraine. I mean, that's a matter, of course, of British sovereignty. If the British people want to send arms, etc., to Ukraine, that's up to them. But the idea of subsidising EU scheme, I think, is absolutely outrageous at the expense of the British taxpayer.
OK. Right, thank you, Niall. More coming up in the next hour on The Late Show Live, including this. Don't go anywhere.
Well, the first thing the Prime Minister did here in Armenia was meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Zelensky very, very happy with what our king said in America.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Rather cloudy today, but lots of places will be dry this bank holiday with some spells of sunshine, but there is the risk of some heavy showers developing, particularly across the south. But this morning, lots of cloud across the UK, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, murky in places. Best of the sunshine first thing across parts of Scotland and the far south of England. But the sunshine will trigger some heavy showers here as we move through into the afternoon. Some brighter breaks developing elsewhere, but largely dry for most. But some colder air and showers filtering into northern Scotland. Here temperatures 10 to 13 degrees, but in the sunshine 18 or 19 degrees across southern England. Into Monday evening, the heavy showers across the south will ease away. Further showers, though, are expected across much of Scotland, and these will push southwards as we head into the early hours, and winds starting to come from a northerly direction. A few showers reaching parts of Northern Ireland into the evening time, and some sunshine to end the day across northern parts of England, and a mixed picture for the rest of England into Wales. Still the odd rumble of thunder possible as the showers slowly ease. Overnight we'll see some longer clear spells starting to develop, some showers in between and under the clear skies and light winds across England and Wales. We could see a few mist and fog patches forming. Some longer spells of rain still possible across the northern parts of Scotland. Here temperatures down to 4 or 5 degrees for most of us, generally in high single figures, low double digits for southern England. So it does mean on Tuesday a brighter start, some spells of sunshine in places, but showery rain across Scotland, some colder air continuing to filter southwards as we go through the day. Some showers bubbling up, but plenty of sunny spells. And for everyone, particularly in the north and the west, feeling a little chillier, temperatures more like the low teens to mid-teens, still reaching around 17 or 18 towards southeast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change.
From the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee?
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
cast. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And some breaking news just in tonight. Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, dubbed America's mayor for his leadership after 9/11. And later, a close ally of President Donald Trump. He's in a critical but stable condition in hospital this evening. That's according to his representative. We'll get more on that in just a second. Also breaking in the last few moments, it seems the creep towards the European Union is getting closer, with the government announcing it's set to enter talks to join the EU's £78 billion loan scheme to Ukraine. Our political correspondent Catherine Forster is in Armenia for us.
Well, the first thing the Prime Minister did here in Armenia was meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Zelensky very, very happy with what our king said in America.
Elsewhere, why are so many Brits relocating to America? To Florida specifically. In a moment, I'll be joined by a British landlord who's loving life in the Sunshine State. There's a huge community down there that's just been followed for a new documentary. I'll ask him if the grass really is greener down in Florida and why so many people are going over there. Also, what's going on here? Secretary of State Marco Rubio there. Has he found yet another role in the Trump administration? I'm Ben Leo and this is The Late Show Live. Remember, no breaks for this hour. Breaking news in the past couple of moments. Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, dubbed America's mayor for his leadership after 9/11 and later a close ally of President Donald Trump. He's in a critical but stable condition in hospital this evening. That's according to a representative. A spokesperson says he's fighting with strength as supporters are urged to keep him in their thoughts. The president has taken to Truth Social, saying, "Our fabulous Rudy Giuliani, a true warrior and the best mayor in the history of New York City by far, has been hospitalised and is in a critical condition. The president goes on. He says, what a tragedy that he was treated so badly by the radical left lunatics, Democrats, and he was right about everything. They cheated on the elections, said the president, fabricated hundreds of stories, did anything possible to destroy our nation, and now look at Rudy. It's so sad. President Donald J. Trump. Niall Gardner, you worked on Rudy Giuliani's presidential campaign. What year was that?
Yeah, 2008.
This is President Trump, by the way, live pictures at the White House. He has just arrived back from Florida. He's now seemingly, with Don Jr., his son as well, seemingly taking in the sights and sounds and the smells of the Rose Garden at the White House. Now, just as we look at the President and his son here at the White House, just tell us about Rudy Giuliani, a fierce ally of this man, the President.
Yeah, I think, Rudy Giuliani, firstly, he was, I think, one of the greatest mayors in New York history, if not the greatest. He completely turned the city around. And New York was a complete basket case before Giuliani took over as mayor. He was known as America's mayor. He was mayor during the 9/11 terrorist attacks, 2001. He was somebody who I think, represented and encapsulated the heroism, the bravery and the courage of the New Yorkers at the time of the 9/11 attacks. He later ran for president of the United States. He was defeated in the Republican primaries by John McCain. And I had the opportunity to work for Rudy Giuliani actually as a foreign policy advisor specialising in the UK and Europe, and I was with him actually in London when he gave a big speech when he was the front runner actually for the Republican nomination, and Margaret Thatcher actually was in the audience. And Giuliani was a real tour de force. And in my view, an extremely courageous crusader against crime in New York City.
But it was the broken windows theory, which was, just explain what that was.
So basically Giuliani brought in, I think, William Bratton to be the police chief for the NYPD. Bratton brought in the broken windows theory, which is the theory that you have to deal with even the lowest levels of crime in order to eliminate higher levels of crime and disorder, and hugely effective. And New York City went from one of the most dangerous cities in the United States to being one of the safest cities under Giuliani. And New York was in absolutely terrible shape, of course, in the 70s and 1980s, 90s, and then Giuliani swept into power, a Republican mayor in an overwhelmingly Democratic city, and he really turned Gotham from a deadbeat, crime-ridden city into a tremendous powerhouse and a very safe city. It's unfortunate that today, under Mamdani, New York is moving the opposite direction. But in his heyday, Giuliani was an incredibly powerful force for good. In my view, one of the greatest mayors in American history.
Yes, and if you're just tuning into GB News and The Late Show Live, Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, affectionately known as America's mayor, he's in hospital tonight in a critical condition. It's not been reported what the issue is. I think it's probably just ill health of some sort. But Victoria, just tell us about Rudy Giuliani. How much does he mean to some Americans?
Well, he definitely means a lot, I think, to people that are a little bit older. Unfortunately, to the younger generation, I think they saw him sort of past his prime, if you will. I think most people my age and a little bit younger, their first thought of Rudy Giuliani is the Four Seasons landscaping press conference when he was an advisor to President Trump on the 2020 presidential campaign. And there was a press conference just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that was supposed to be at the Four Seasons Hotel, but the Trump campaign had booked Four Seasons landscaping. And so, all this press and supporters turned up to this landscaping venue that was, I believe it was by a crematorium as well as...
So they came to the wrong hotel?
Well, so they were supposed to book the hotel, the Four Seasons Hotel, and they booked a local business, which was Four Seasons Landscaping.
Oh, got it.
So, and then Giuliani was pictured outside in the heat, kind of dripping with some of his hair coloring down his face. So, unfortunately, I do think he did amazing things for New York and things like that, but I think kind of the image just of Giuliani for most people of the younger generation happens to be that.
Okay. Former Mayor of New York, Eric Adams, has wished Giuliani a speedy recovery. Just before we move on, he said, "We may not always agree politically, but this moment rises above politics." On behalf of Eric Adams, we are wishing strength, good health and a full recovery to Rudy Giuliani, a man who devoted his life to public service. And I will say, the broken windows theory, Niall, that is just proof that zero tolerance, you deal with the small stuff and the rest of it handles itself, which is what we don't have anymore. We have people being able to shoplift up to $1,000 without penalty. You have kids running riot, causing havoc everywhere and being let off. The courts are full in England because there's no prison spaces. You have pedos being let free. Whilst, people who post on social media get banged up. It's just, just insane. Completely insane. Thoughts and wishes and prayers to Rudy Giuliani tonight. We're not sure exactly what the issue is, but he's in a critical condition in hospital. Right, let's move on, shall we? Breaking tonight, the government has just announced it intends to start talks to join the European Union's €90 billion loan for Ukraine. 90 billion. As it seeks to bolster support for Kyiv and deepen defence ties with the bloc. The PM is in Armenia, where he'll tell leaders at a gathering tomorrow in the capital, Yerevan, that Britain wants to work more closely with them to ensure Ukraine gets the military equipment it needs to continue its fight back against Russia's invasion. Well, GB News chief political correspondent Catherine Forster, she's there for us and sent this report.
Welcome to Yerevan in Armenia. We are here where Europe meets Asia, and just 160 miles south of here is the border with Iran. The reason the Prime Minister is here, he's only the second British PM ever to come, is because about 45 European leaders, not just from the European Union, but all over, have got together for the European Political Community meeting. They do this twice a year to talk about shared challenges, and my goodness, there's plenty of those at the moment. Yes, of course, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. But that is by no means all at the moment. The first thing the Prime Minister did when he arrived was had a meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. I was in the room when that happened at the beginning of the meeting. Zelensky, very effusive in his thanks for Britain. And also the King's words. He said that Ukraine really appreciated what he called the strong words from the King in supporting Ukraine in his visit to the United States. He feels that that will have helped them. Also, the United Kingdom is announcing that they are trying to bid to be involved in this £78 billion Ukrainian loan programme that the EU is running. 3 reasons for that. First of all, to help Ukraine. Second of all, to reinforce defence and cooperation with the EU, something Keir Starmer is always keen on. Also, because the government thinks it will bring British jobs in the defence industry back to Britain, something, of course, that can only be welcomed. So that's already happened today. Tomorrow, dozens of leaders will meet, and yes, the focus will be on European defence, but it will also be on what is happening in the Middle East, the conflict between Iran, Israel, and America. Now, Donald Trump thought we were all bystanders, not very happy with what he saw as lack of support. But the Prime Minister, President Macron and others have been convening these meetings to try to work out how European countries can help when that conflict finally ends, how they could potentially help to demine the Strait of Hormuz, because as we know, until that vital shipping lane is reopened, our energy bills, our petrol bills and our summer holidays are all suffering the results. We will bring you the latest throughout the summit.
I'm joined now by former Lib Dem councillor Matthew Holbert and former Conservative MP Louise Mensch. Good evening to you both. Louise, I'll start with you. I think it's 400 million quid Keir Starmer is prepared to hand over to this sort of loan pot for Ukraine. Is that the right move, do you think? Something you support?
Totally do support it. However, he'll be lucky to get away with just 400 million. It's being reported today in the Times that the EU plans to hold us over a barrel for our charitable efforts towards Ukraine and demand at least £1 billion. And it's further reported that the French initially wanted to ask for £2 billion. In a way, they say they'd like us to come back to the EU, but they throw up these barriers every time. Of course, Sir Keir Starmer might think he's a bit flush with money because now he doesn't have to pay Mauritius to give away the Chagos Islands. Now he can just pay the French in order to give Ukraine some more money. But the fact is, it is always a good thing for us to support Ukraine. Let's be honest, the elephant in the room is that we do not have the ability right now to defend ourselves. We will never get a cheaper and better strike at our enemies, the Russians, than by giving money to Ukraine, let them do the job, because they are doing a bang-up job so far.
How Keir Starmer has been on the record many times saying, and his support for Ukraine is steadfast. He says, we'll be there for as long as it takes. What does that mean, really, Louise, as long as it takes? I mean, just an endless sort of pot of taxpayer money for years on end? Because, I mean, I'm not an expert, but Russia are hanging in there, Ukraine are hanging in there, they're slaughtering each other, kids in trenches in the Donbass. I mean, how long does this go on?
It goes on for as long as Russia wants to illegally invade Ukraine. If I were you, I'd be keeping an eye on the Kerch Bridge right now. If you have a look, actually, Russia is losing. It is not a stalemate. Russian air defences have been taken out very recently by the armed forces of Ukraine all over Crimea. If I were them, I would be extremely worried. It's been reported that the Russians are so worried about the Ukrainians invading Crimea, which they see as their territory, that they've literally been mining the beaches of their own territory. And of course, Ukraine, and I will say this for Donald Trump, he's taken the brakes off Ukraine, and they've taken advantage of that by striking very deep into Russia. And Russia is so hard up right now. Putin is so worried about a coup that he has quite literally shut off the internet in the center of Moscow. If you're a Russian kid, you cannot get on the internet unless you have maybe Starlink by Elon Musk and a very good VPN.
Oh, wow.
So it's not going very well for Russia, and now is the time for us to finish this job as much as possible, because what Ukraine doesn't do for us, Russia will do to us, and we are in no position to defend ourselves at the moment.
Okay. Matthew Holbert, if I was a sort of senior minister in the Kremlin, I'd be staying away from balconies right now.
Well, good to see you, Ben, and good to debate with Louise again as well. And I'm quite surprised. I agree with a great deal that she said there. I think that Ukraine are doing a remarkable job in holding off Russia for what has been several years now, and it's quite right that we provide this support. Where perhaps me and Louise might begin to differ is when I say that, I'm very pleased, obviously, as a Lib Dem, to see us starting to rebuild our broken relationship with Europe. It's what Ed Davey has been calling for a very long time now, and I think we need to go even further. I mean, these are our great friends on the continent, and especially at a time when we have such an unreliable partner in the White House.
Can I just say that Donald Trump has not demanded that we pay him £2 billion, Matthew. I will just say that Donald Trump is not actually literally asking us for money. Yes, it's important to go out to the EU, but as the supporter of an opposition party yourself, Matthew, wouldn't you agree with me that what he's really trying to do is wrap himself up in the yellow and blue, not the red, white and blue, but the yellow and blue, so that people won't be angry at him when he comes a cropper in the May local elections? He's going to lose to the Lib Dems, he's going to lose to Reform, he's going to lose to the Greens, he's going to lose to the Tories. And what is the point of him going out and trying to make deals for the sake of Great Britain when he probably won't be here in a month?
Well, people call him Never Hear Keir. I think that's a little bit unfair because prime ministers do have to go on these international visits. But do I think it'll do him any good in the long run? No, of course I don't. We all know that it's the economy stupid. That is what elections are won and lost on, and also on trust. And I think, me and you, Louise, will agree on this, that I'm afraid Keir Starmer has lost the trust of the British people. And I don't personally think there's anything he can do to win that back. And I expect that I know we have to be careful what we say about the elections, but I expect, given the polls, that Labour will face a drubbing across Britain next week. So in that respect, these international visits do him no good. But I do think this one is important.
OK, Louise, last word to you.
Boris tried it, and as much as I supported Boris Johnson when he was deeply unpopular, he went out to Kyiv loads of times, he was greeted as a hero. It is really nice that in Britain, the one thing that unites everybody across the political spectrum is we all don't like Russia and we all support Ukraine. That's because we're decent British people and it's above politics. But if Keir Starmer thinks this Hail Mary is going to somehow save him from being probably turfed out by his own party, he is very, very wrong. And really, perhaps we should be waiting until after the local elections to send people out who've got the authority to negotiate for Britain in the long term.
Okay, thank you guys. Fascinating conversation. Appreciate you being up with us at this time. Well, Louise, you're in New York, so not so bad for you, but thank you anyway. Appreciate you as always. Former Conservative MP Louise Mensch and Matthew Holbert, former Lib Dem councillor. Right, panel here. Niall, what's your take on the Ukraine situation? Somebody has said on your say here, basically, I've lost the comment now. I'll stop feeding white men to the forever war meat grinder.
You know, I think that a couple of things. I think that. Keir Starmer clearly is trying to reattach the UK to the European Union. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Britain can easily support Ukraine without being tied to some big, massive EU-driven defence project, actually. And Keir Starmer is just muddying the waters. This is political. I don't think this really is about Ukraine. This is actually about bringing the UK back into the EU's orbit. And it's a political move by the Euro-federalists in Downing Street. It's a slap in the face for Brexit. Why should the UK be underwriting, some big EU defence loan? This is not the role of the United Kingdom. The UK can provide whatever support it wants to provide to Ukraine on its own without being tied to a sinking Titanic European Union. So I really disagree with this. And also at the same time, there's a huge amount of hypocrisy from Keir Starmer. So rightly, of course, the UK is backing Ukraine against the malevolent and murderous Russians. But Keir Starmer says the Iran war is not our war. And he's refusing to lift a finger to support the United States in the fight against the Iranian regime, which poses a direct threat, of course, to the United Kingdom.
Great point. So what would he say if he was here, Starmer? How would he square that?
Well, I don't think Starmer could really, justify his position.
Well, he would probably. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. He'd probably say Iran hasn't invaded another nation.
Well, Iran's been killing large numbers of Britons and Americans and others for the last few decades. Iran's been basically, in effect, at war with the UK for many, many years and decades. Actually, it killed a large number of British troops fighting in Iraq. There's British blood on its hands. The Iran war clearly is Britain's war as well. And if Iran acquires nuclear weapons capability, it could use that directly against London or any other European capital. And so Britain has a direct stake in the outcome of the Iran war, yet Keir Starmer refuses to do anything at all, actually. And so there is massive hypocrisy coming from Downing Street and the British government on this, and real absolute cowardice over Iran.
Victoria, what's the latest with President Trump in Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, as we were talking about earlier, he's obviously got this Iran thing to deal with, and he's headed to China next. So I think Ukraine and Russia are probably on a little bit of a back burner for him. I think he's quite publicly tried at least twice. Of course, we're not quite sure what his advisors are doing behind the scenes, but I think a lot of people were optimistic, not only at the Putin and Trump summit in Alaska last year, as well as the most recent visit by Zelensky, to the U.S. At least publicly, they've tried a couple of times. They're probably doing more behind the scenes, but I think he's got kind of bigger fish to fry with Iran and China. And then, I do think that before the end of his presidency, he does want to see this conflict resolved. He said multiple times that if he was president when it all kicked off and not Joe Biden, that it would have never started.
It never would have happened.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I do think that this is probably the one that if he is able to get Ukraine and Russia to the table, that's probably going to be, if he says it, that's going to be the cause for the Nobel Peace Prize and of their nomination. Of course, he's got the FIFA Peace Prize for now, but I think he would like that
Peace Prize.
that Nobel Peace Prize in the long run.
That FIFA Peace Prize was an absolute sham.
You were there, right, that day?
I was there for the draw. I was just oh my God, just give me football back, please. This isn't football. This is just absolute toss. Paul Cox, are the EU our friends? Matthew Holbert there said the guys in the EU are our friends. I don't look at the EU as our friends, really.
Look, we often combine the countries and the people of continental Europe with the EU. The EU is this bloc which is definitely not our friends. If you know anything about British history, you know that it's just the antithesis of everything that we've built up over the years. It's no wonder we came out. No wonder at all. And look, I genuinely believe it's a good idea to support Ukraine. That's my standpoint. Like Niall said, I do not believe that we should be underwriting some £90 billion loan to do so. But let's not forget, just because I think that, and maybe others think that, there is plenty of the GB News family and the wider constituents across the UK that don't necessarily support this in the same way that I do. And £90 billion is a lot of money. I'm not sure what proportion of that the UK are fronting, but at the end of the day, that sort of thing has to come back to Parliament for my money. I would support it. I support the Ukraine. Ukraine are doing great. Russia did invade Ukraine. I have no issue with any of that. Like Niall said, we don't have to align ourselves with the political EU bloc in order to support Ukraine. We can quite happily do that independently. If our proportion of that is 10% and it's £9 billion, that's a lot of money. Like I said, I don't have any issue going with it. But it's not just for Keir Starmer to continually say, particularly as he keeps acting off-piste. He doesn't have any manifesto to keep aligning us to the EU or just to keep doing things that are his pet project because there's a chance that he's going to disappear at some point soon.
Yeah, interesting. I don't think, for the most part, the EU nations are our friends. You look at France, who is allowing 71,000 since Keir Starmer took over small boat migrants to cross the Channel into the UK. They're allowing them to do that, despite they've had what they had now, nearly £1 billion over 8 years or something, whatever the deal is, 400 million over 4 years. That's not my friend. Someone who does that. Imagine you have a mate who keeps letting your house get burgled, keeps sending burglars round to your house.
It's absolutely outrageous.
It's not my friend.
So
yeah, it's outrageous what the French are doing. I mean,
I guess what I'm trying to say, Ben, and I'm being ever so charitable here, is that there's a difference between the people of these countries and their governments, and especially the EU.
I'm talking about the governments,
Yeah, the EU, by the way, the EU is massive, the bloc is massive, and they've got this tiny commission that sits in the middle that makes all of these policies, which nobody really gets to vote on, by the way. The idea that the EU is some democratic state is for the birds. It's a nonsense. The more you look into the EU, and by the way, I'm coming at this from someone who in 2016 voted to remain. Sorry, Niall. But I did, and for all the wrong reasons, actually. But very quickly I accepted, and even quicker, I started to look at the reaction from the Remainers to the Brexit voters and thought, hang on a minute, what's going on? And looked into it much more deeply. The EU's a scam. It works for maybe 2 or 3 of the major European continental countries. Everyone else is just a bit part player.
Well, also it's very undemocratic. Look what they did to Greece. Greece basically saying we don't want to be part of the EU anymore, let's just go bankrupt, we'll do our own thing. And then they installed a sort of sham government in its place and twisted their arm, and they decided to crack on with the EU. Poor Greece. My family are Greek. I'll see what they've done to what the EU's done to them, especially with Lesbos. The island of Lesbos, where my family are from, just the gateway to the migrant crisis in Europe, just ruins that island. Look at Ireland as well. Ireland didn't Ireland vote to leave the? What was that vote? Niall, Ireland had.
They voted against. I think it was the European treaty or European constitution, and that vote was overturned, of course, because that was a democratic vote, and the EU acts like a complete tyranny and does not believe in democracy.
Yeah, they didn't like the answer. They told them to go back and vote again. Yeah, just a complete scam. Anyway, let's move on. Thank you, Paul. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live. This is a great one. From serving locals to landing a national spotlight, a British pub in Florida is about to feature on a brand new documentary. So it's a British pub in Florida. A reported 400,000 Brits now call the Sunshine State home, creating a whole expat community built around British food, football, soccer I guess, pubs and a taste of life back home. Martin Thomas joins us now as his escape to Florida puts his business on the screen, showcasing British food and community abroad. Owner of the best British pub in Davenport, Florida. Martin joins me now. Martin, hello, thank you for joining us. Why are, aside from the weather, the great fruit, the sea, the ocean, probably lower taxes, why are so many people moving to Florida from Britain?
I think it's always been the case for many, many years, the last 20, 25 years. For us, it was to follow a dream, to have an adventure, I suppose you would say. It's always been a difficult place to get to the US. But when people come here on a holiday, the first thing they always say is, "Oh, I wish I could live here," you know. And the way that things have been back home, and I think people have been trying to get away to Spain or Portugal, and Florida is just another part of that. And it is a great place to live in most parts.
How long have you been in Florida, Martin, and what do you miss about the UK? Because I've spent some time in Florida since I came to the US. I love the place, but actually wherever I go in America, after a while, I just end up missing England. I love England. I miss the countryside. I think it's beautiful, and I don't really, as much as I love places in America, nothing really beats England, especially in the summer.
Yeah, I very much agree with you. I was back home for 2 or 3 weeks in the last month, and I love coming home. I'm from Oldham near Manchester, which I tell the Americans is a little fishing village. Always makes them laugh. But I do miss home. I tell everybody that, you know, it's still by far the best country in the world, the UK. Coming here was for a different life, for an adventure, and it's very tough at times. You know, it's not all Disney World and beaches out here. You've got to work very, very hard. There's not the support system here that there is in the UK if things do go wrong. So it's certainly not all. It's certainly not easy. You've got to work for everything you have here. But yeah, the things I miss are the football, the cricket, the rugby, those beautiful spring days in the UK. You know, summers are pretty pretty horrendous here. But at the moment, this is home. The US has been good to me. I'm a citizen here now, so yeah, for the time being, everything is good, and the TV show is going to be an interesting take on life here.
Yeah, so tell us about that. What's the name of your pub? What's in it? Just tell us about the show as well. Like, how did it come around, and what can viewers expect to see?
So it's called The Best of British. About as straightforward as you can get. That's the old place, by the way. We've moved into a new place, but yeah, you know, we're a typical British pub. We do fish and chips and full English and sausage and mash. We show the footy. It's a place where we have a lot of expats live in the area. They work at Disney and work on vacation, holiday properties and everything. So it's a place where people can come and just get a taste of home, whether that's once a week, once a month, come in for the football. You know, I always say it that if you try to live like a Brit out here, you'll never settle. But the odd days you just do want that taste of home, that banter, which is a big part of what we're about. You know, I always say we're like a carry-on film in our place at times, and we're also a big part of the community. You know, like pubs are and used to be in the UK. You know, we have huge problems with hurricanes here and everything, and we're a real hub of the community when things like that are happening. And we really try to immerse ourselves, and we are part of living in the USA. We're not in the UK, but we're our little slice of it.
Yeah, great stuff. It looks really fun. Mate, I'm going to have to come down there. I think there's a Scotland-Brazil game in the World Cup in Miami at some point. So that's in June the 23rd. So maybe I'll have to come and pop down. Just finally, yeah, I saw in your... Yeah, it's going to be amazing. And of course, you had the Miami GP today as well, the Formula One. So it's all going on in Florida. Martin, just tell us finally. We just saw some clips there from maybe your old place. You sell things like what? Robinson's squash, Heinz baked beans, and so on. Just tell us about some of the things you sell in the pub or maybe the shop that give people a taste of back home.
Yeah, the main things are bacon, sausage, bread, Cadbury's chocolate. Jaffa cakes, Robinsons, stuff like that. It's just stuff that make people, miss home. They just need that little link to back home, that little taste. American food can be quite sugary and sickly a lot of the time. So just to be able to get those little tastes is what we try to do. But it's very difficult as well importing things out here now. The cost of doing it, the difficulties in doing it with what's happened with the administration in the last 12 months. There's always different hurdles thrown in our way. But we try to do our best and just give people that little taste of home.
Well done, Martin. It's going to be great. Where can we watch the show? Is it ready to view now, or are you still filming?
Channel 4 tomorrow at 4 p.m. UK time. It's on for the next 20 days, I believe, and we feature in the first 5. So, yeah, a little bit apprehensive. It's out of our comfort zone, but yeah, we're looking forward to it and hope you enjoy it and take it just for what it is, just a bit of fun.
Yeah, nice one, mate. Well done. I will definitely come and visit your boozer at some point this year before I go home. Thanks, Martin. Great stuff. Appreciate it. That's Martin Thomas.
Thank you.
Right, yeah, I love Florida, Victoria. However, as I said to Martin, I'll spend time in one place in America. I'll say, oh, this is great, I love it. But I always end up just missing England. Nothing beats England in the summer.
England in the summer is great. I was there last May and we actually got a break in the weather. It wasn't too rainy, but that was nice. But I was actually just in Florida a couple weeks ago and I wish I'd known about this because he's pretty close to Orlando and that's where I was earlier in the beginning of April. So yeah,
amazing.
I will have to go back down. It's quite an easy flight down from DC.
Yeah, it's about an hour.
Yeah, so we'll have to all get together for a long weekend and go down there. But you know, I was really happy in that little clip they were playing off TikTok. The full English had black pudding, which is impossible to get here in America, and that's like how I rate whether a British pub is authentic or not, about whether the full English comes with black pudding.
Well, I don't think I'm British in that case because I can't stand black
I'm
pudding.
not a fan of black pudding, but
no.
I think we really need a place like that here in Washington, don't we? You know.
Well, there's
forecourts in Arlington, which is pretty good.
You know, a real British pub, but also that sells, you know, English chocolate and sweets.
Well, there's a place in Union Market which sells Cadbury's, Heinz, does Robinson squash, quite expensive, but they're imports, I guess. And there's also a British pub which does Sunday roasts, and we went there the other week, my wife and kids, when they came to visit, and it was
pass the test at it.
No, it was awful.
Okay.
I'm not going to name the pub because they're nice people, but it was not a Sunday roast. I was like, no, set me home. Anyway, right, let's continue. gbnews.com/your sake. Would you swap the USA for? Actually, let's ask Paul Cox. Sorry, Paul, I forgot you were there. I wouldn't swap Florida for Great Britain, would you?
No, probably not. I've only ever been once, and that was in the June of 2007, many moons ago, Ben. It was blooming hot is what it was. But I'm a huge fan of the UK, particularly May. My favourite month is May. We're in May now. I just love these warm spring days. Everything's coming alive. The countryside's magnificent. You know, warm beer, cricket, all these things. Play the national anthem, come on. But all these things I am just married to, I think, and that's never going to change. The idea of living somewhere else is fine, absolutely, but I think I'd always want to come home. Victoria know this. Mr. Churchill's an Englishman. I'm sure that he's shown her the delights of Great Britain, including black pudding, Ben.
No, you're a fan of black pudding.
I love black pudding. Now, the one thing I haven't found in America yet is hula hoops. So I love hula hoops. Well, that's my favorite thing to get in England.
Hoops, crisps are available, but yeah, hula hoops are great. And Niall
the pickled onion ones, those are my favorite.
We won't show on the screen because, again, we can't really advertise, but Niall has a classic piece of confectionery hidden behind his laptop from Great Britain. It's the type you could probably, it's a little ball, you could probably put it above your lips and blow it into the air because it's so light, but there we go, try and guess what it is. Yes, okay, right, let's move on, shall we? Enough indulging in confectionery and chocky. From foreign policy to the dance floor, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State here in America, is swapping speeches for spin sets. He was filmed beat matching behind the decks at a family wedding in Florida as a DJ, and the guests seem to be loving it. Take a look at this.
There's no stopping us right now. I feel so close to you right now.
So there we go, Marco Rubio, DJ extraordinaire. My director just said in my ear, that's me every break. Don't know what he meant about that. What do you mean by that, Victoria?
No, I have no idea. We can't let the people know what happens when the cameras aren't rolling.
Indeed. He does every job, Marco Rubio.
Oh, he is. Well, it's funny because I guess he himself has actually figured out all the memes that exist about him on the internet. I think the latest one was him in a Spirit Airlines stewardess costume. That was the one from a couple days ago. But yeah, you know, I mean, honestly, he seems like a great guy. I think we need to do a Ben versus Marco DJ off here in GB News. It might be your highest viewed segment ever.
So the secret is that during the breaks and before the shows, I just bosh out tunes on my laptop. I love singing and you know, sort of bopping away before the show and in between breaks. So different genre each day. Niall, Marco Rubio, on a serious note, he probably will be, I argue, the Republican runner for 28.
Yeah, I think if he does run, he'll be a very strong contender. I think Marco Rubio is really in his prime right now. He's doing very well as Secretary of State. He's been absolutely outstanding. and he's a genuine nice guy, Marco Rubio.
Is he?
And yeah, he is. Yeah, I've met him, and he's somebody who I think comes across as a genuinely warm character who cares about ordinary people, and I've always found him to be very, very likable. He has a great team as well that works for him, and Marco Rubio has been one of the best secretaries of state that America's ever had, and I think that Rubio has a very bright future. Whatever he decides to do in the future, I think he's going to be very successful. He's a very genuine politician. And he's also somebody who, on the world stage, he's got some real gravitas and weight, and I think that he's been, a stunning success story. Actually, as U.S. Secretary of State. I mean, he's one of the best, really.
Yeah, because Victoria, just very quickly, the consensus was it would be J.D. Vance, the Vice President now, who would run in 28. It could be none of them. It could be somebody else. But Vance has kind of been overshadowed, I guess, in the past 6 months by Rubio. Just briefly.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously Rubio has run for president before. He ran in the 2016 presidential nomination. There was a brief moment of a Marco-mentum, as they used to call it. Maybe they might be bringing that back ahead of 2028. But, of course, you look at foreign policy particularly. Vance was sent to Iran just a few weeks ago, or to negotiate with Iran, excuse me. Of course, with the Iranians. Yeah, exactly. And Rubio was left out, and I think, and again, I don't have sources in the administration telling me this is just my own analysis, that Trump kind of knew it wasn't going to succeed, which is why he made JD the face of it and not Marco.
Okay, interesting. Long way to go, of course. Likewise, the UK, people say Reform UK, topping the polls. Long way to go. Lots of things could change. Very quick email, Stuart. Hello, Stuart. You said, Dear Ben, though we all love you, all the products you said you get close to your studio that remind you of home are now American. And Heinz beans has always been. Has Heinz always been American?
Yeah, so it's an American company, but the beans that are sold in the UK are uniquely produced for Britain, or they're made in the UK.
Is the recipe different?
I think the recipe is. It's less sweet. American baked beans are too sweet.
They are different. It's of course American brand and company, but they make uniquely British baked beans for the British market.
Kraft Heinz, is that the company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Didn't Kraft Heinz buy Cadbury?
I think so.
Which is why Cadbury chocolate has now, I argue, gone downhill in here in the UK and the US. And Robinson's squash, is that American?
I think that's British, actually.
Okay. Wimbledon. Reminds me of Wimbledon. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Stuart. Appreciate that. Let's take a look at some other news stories dropping here in America today. A man has been arrested at President Trump's Doral Golf Club in Florida after allegedly confronting Secret Service agents. Police say he became disruptive and made physical contact with a Secret Service agent before being detained. The president wasn't on site. Elsewhere, just speaking of the man, Marco Rubio is expected to travel to Italy this week for talks with Pope Leo at the Vatican. The meeting comes amid growing tensions after criticism of the pontiff from President Trump and wider strains between the US and Europe. And prosecutors say new evidence confirms the alleged gunman fired the shot that hit a Secret Service officer at a Washington media gala attended by President Trump last weekend. This is the footage on your screen now. Janine Pirro, the AG, says forensic analysis links the bullet directly to the suspect's weapon as investigators continue to review footage of the attack. And if you didn't know already, if you are a Formula One fan and you haven't seen the race and you want to get the highlights, put your fingers in your ears right now, because Mercedes driver Kimi Antonelli has taken victory at the Miami Grand Prix in Florida tonight. His third consecutive win from pole position this season for Mercedes. Britain's Lando Norris finished second after winning the sprint race yesterday, with teammate Oscar Piastri placing third, while my son's favourite, Max Verstappen, he spun on the opening lap and dropped down the order. I think he finished fifth. The other Brits, George Russell, finished fourth, while Lewis Hamilton finished seventh, respectively. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live, I'll be joined by geopolitical expert and friend of the show, Kate Jones. First, though, let's get a look at your weather. Back in a sec.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Rather cloudy today, but lots of places will be dry this bank holiday with some spells of sunshine, but there is the risk of some heavy showers developing particularly across the south. But this morning, lots of cloud across the UK, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, murky in places. Best of the sunshine first thing across parts of Scotland and the far south of England. But the sunshine will trigger some heavy showers here as we move through into the afternoon. Some brighter breaks developing elsewhere, but largely dry for most. But some colder air and showers filtering into northern Scotland. Here temperatures 10 to 13 degrees, but in the sunshine 18 or 19 degrees across southern England. Into Monday evening, the heavy showers across the south will ease away. Further showers, though, are expected across much of Scotland, and these will push southwards as we head into the early hours, and winds starting to come from a northerly direction. A few showers reaching parts of Northern Ireland into the evening time, and some sunshine to end the day across northern parts of England, and a mixed picture for the rest of England into Wales. Still the odd rumble of thunder possible as the showers slowly ease. Overnight we'll see some longer clear spells starting to develop, some showers in between and under the clear skies, and light winds across England and Wales. We could see a few mist and fog patches forming. Some longer spells of rain still possible across the northern parts of Scotland. Here temperatures down to 4 or 5 degrees. For most of us, generally in high single figures, low double digits for southern England. So it does mean on Tuesday a brighter start, some spells of sunshine in places, but showery rain across Scotland, some colder air continuing to filter southwards as we go through the day. Some showers bubbling up, but plenty of sunny spells. And for everyone, particularly in the north and the west, feeling a little chillier. Temperatures more like the low teens to mid-teens, still reaching around 17 or 18 towards southeast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Right, Iran has sent the United States a 14-point plan calling for the war to end within 30 days. The proposal, a rebuttal to the US 9-point plan, reportedly demands sanctions relief, an end to the naval blockade and US forces withdrawing from the region. But the US says efforts to free up shipping through the Strait of Hormuz will begin Monday morning, Middle Eastern time. Tonight, President Trump has said he's reviewing it, but has already cast doubt on whether a deal can be done following the proposal. He went on Truth Social to say that the United States would begin an effort to free up ships stranded in the Strait on Monday morning. It's quite an interesting, as I keep saying, a separate story this, which is vessels and ships which have been essentially stranded in the Strait or near the Strait since the start of the conflict. And you have to think of the seafarers on board, the crew, the captains, which I assume have been stuck on board all that time, away from their families, maybe struggling to get resources, but more on that very shortly. Also, breaking news just now, the US military has said that US forces will begin supporting the project on Monday to restore freedom of navigation for commercial shipping through the Strait. And that was the post that President Trump was just referring to. Delighted to say Kate Jones is here, geopolitical expert, friend of the show. Hello, Kate.
Hey.
Lots going on there. Just first of all, I find really interesting the point of the stranded vessels. Is that the case that they've not been able to move, and the crew, are they still on board during all this time?
Yeah, the crew's still on board.
For
The
months
ships
on
are
end.
trapped, and in this case, they are running out of provisions. And it's kind of a clever little jab at Iran to talk about the humanitarian aspect.
Oh.
It's a little bit undeniable. These are civilians. These mariners are just working on commercial shipping.
So it's Trump now saying, well, don't worry about Iran. We know how you've behaved over the past nearly 50 decades. We'll come and deal with these stranded ships. We'll take care of the crew on board. Because, as I said, I guess they're away from their families, maybe struggling to get food. Nobody can access them.
Yeah, food, provisions, anything they need for repairs, they've been just sitting there. And think about this. What happens if they fire on them? If Iran does that, now we've got reasons to... isn't that an act of war against commercial shipping? I mean, this is it gets complex because there are different maritime and laws of war, but it does give a heck of an excuse for more strikes.
Essentially sitting ducks, those vessels. And yeah, I used to it doesn't matter, it's a long story, but I used to do some sort of work with a seafarers charity. So they'd go all around the world to ships that had been maybe arrested in ports, or the owner didn't pay sort of fuel fees and so on, and these charities would go and help the crew and the captains and so on. It happens a lot more often than you think. Right, on to more serious matters. This 14-point plan, which is being considered, crucially, Kate, it doesn't include nuclear concessions, which makes me think, well, that is the #1 aim of this conflict from the US side. So what's the point?
Looks like a joke. I think the Iranians are just buying some time they are running out of storage for oil. They are having major problems with financial issues, and the cutoff of from the Treasury and sanctions that have occurred have been very harmful to even making payments to the IRGC. So I think they're just trying to buy time with a deal that they don't really think can go anywhere.
So again, I just said to you off air, I'm no war hawk at all. I think war is the worst of humanity. However, seeing what's happening here, why is President Trump being so patient? Why doesn't he just finish the job militarily?
Because he's not working from a vacuum and he has a lot of time. So now with this sort of humanitarian push, all right, we're going to try and help get ships through the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran does anything, then there's reason to retaliate. But at this stage, it's not very popular, is it? So they're at a little bit of a stalemate, not able to agree, and Trump is biding his time. I think the world doesn't have time, but Trump has time.
Does he have time? Because I'd argue the midterms are coming up in November. As it stands, if you look at polls, the Republicans will probably lose the House and the Senate, and Democrats are now plotting to impeach Trump. Of course, it'd have to go to the House, but is he in a race against time to get this done before the midterms?
I think there's been a great loss of the economic benefits that might have made the decision on the midterms already, and some of that had to do with shutdown, some of that had to do with this war, this conflict with Iran. But I don't think that at this stage it's necessarily sensible, and he is reshifting the globe. You're getting Venezuelan oil out at percentages that were unexpected. You're seeing the Panama Canal in use. You're seeing a huge shift in how oil is being transferred, and people are trying to find clever ways to solve the problem. Now, they won't be able to solve it because it's too large, but it does make a shift and a shift in mentality. It also makes a shift in mentality in places like Europe, places that are seeing drone strikes on new neighbors. And so that's, that expansion of the need for defense is becoming extremely clear at the very moment that the United States is in a very adversarial relationship with China that is not a near peer anymore, but a military peer.
And again, I'll say people treat these incidents, Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, the Greenland situation, as moments of isolated madness by the nutter in the White House. But I think it's quite clear, even for novices, geopolitical novices like me, to look at it now and say they are all connected. This is about China. This is additionally, as a Brucey bonus, getting rid of communism. Another bonus, stopping the drugs from Venezuela into America. It's all about China, isn't it? And regaining dominance in the Western
Hemisphere. I think it's just that a reaction to a reshift in a multipolar power world. There's not two superpowers, there's three. And really, China has dominance in almost every area with the United States. While the United States is a very powerful country, there is a huge conflict between the two. And there's the question on Taiwan, which is a massive trading partner to the United States, and all the semiconductors.
The chips.
Yes. Yeah. This is the AI race. This is a huge problem for the United States. Taiwan has all the technology that's needed for the future and is the big trading partner for the world in semiconductors.
Okay. Talking of the EU and defence, the front page of the Times newspaper tomorrow, Britain told to pay the EU £1 billion a year after a reset, and we're also chucking towards the EU pot some more defence money for Ukraine. I think a 78 billion pound pot. I'm not too sure how much contributions the UK is making. It says here 400 million, but I think it must be more than that. It says British defence firms will be able to provide equipment for Kyiv under the scheme in return for a contribution of up to 400 million from Britain. Is that the right thing to do?
It's a loan. I don't know what the interest is on that loan. Usually loans are pretty good if there's a peacetime afterwards, and there's certainly a defense industrial base that could grow inside Ukraine in a post-war period. You're also seeing the Europeans consider this idea of peace suddenly more vehemently, particularly with the United States and withdrawing some of its engagement from Europe and asking it to defend itself against Russia. So yeah, $78 billion. I think there's something a little more to this. I think Starmer's trying to also have the opportunity for UK defense companies to have sales as part of that loan, right? Engaging in the loan and then cozying up, paying the $1 billion. Maybe he's trying to also get some defense sales into Ukraine.
What's our biggest sort of military exports in terms of defense?
Well, actually, we're on the defense side. It really does vary, and in fact, a lot of defense right now is software. and then also their demining equipment. But UK really is, despite the chagrin of many Britons about what's happened to the UK military and defence in general, it's still so much better than the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
You know, it's still a leader. But I would look as well to the future. Think about, you know, the UK has a very good and kind of loose construction around the use of AI, and the regulatory frameworks are much better than in Europe.
Yeah,
and you have a ton of venture capital investment that goes into the UK. And because of the regulatory environment there are opportunities and entrepreneurial opportunities that really blow a lot of Europe away.
Well, I think was it Anthropic who have just opened an office in London? Is that right? And their salaries are in something like 600k a year for certain jobs as well. And there seems to be a sort of a square mile in London, not the city, where all these AI companies are now setting up camp. Is that what you're talking about?
It's across the board. You know, venture capital investment is quite awesome into the UK. And then also the talent. I mean, you do have a bit of a brain drain coming out of Britain, but you've got great talent in supercomputing. You know, look at like Oxford University is such a leader. It's one of the best universities in the world for computer science. And so, you know, you have great talent and a deep base. And Summer actually does have a pretty good plan on AI. I think the EU is asking for the $1 billion and very nervous about Great Britain coming in and cherry picking what it wants out of the EU, which would be wise, like really wise. Cherry pick the heck out of that.
Thank you so much for coming on. I love speaking to you because you remind me off air about how great our Royal Navy still is, how we're so effective, and also you remind us how great we are in other sectors, which is easy to get lost on. So thank you very much. Kate Jones, geopolitical expert, and I know viewers love you as well, so thank you very much. Right, stick with us on The Late Show Live. More coming up after the weather, including the most expensive match ticket I've ever seen for a football match. Can you guess how much an England game is in the groups in the US here for the World Cup? See you in a sec.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Rather cloudy today, but lots of places will be dry this bank holiday with some spells of sunshine, but there is the risk of some heavy showers developing, particularly across the south. But this morning, lots of cloud across the UK, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, murky in places. Best of the sunshine first thing across parts of Scotland and the far south of England, but the sunshine will trigger some heavy showers here as we move through into the afternoon. Some brighter breaks developing elsewhere, but largely dry for most. But some colder air and showers filtering into northern Scotland. Here temperatures 10 to 13 degrees, but in the sunshine 18 or 19 degrees across southern England. Into Monday evening, the heavy showers across the south will ease away. Further showers, though, are expected across much of Scotland, and these will push southwards as we head into the early hours, and winds starting to come from a northerly direction. A few showers reaching parts of Northern Ireland into the evening time, and some sunshine to end the day across northern parts of England, and a mixed picture for the rest of England into Wales. Still the odd rumble of thunder possible as the showers slowly ease. Overnight we'll see some longer clear spells starting to develop, some showers in between and under the clear skies and light winds across England and Wales. We could see a few mist and fog patches forming. Some longer spells of rain still possible across the northern parts of Scotland. Here temperatures down to 4 or 5 degrees for most of us, generally in high single figures, low double digits for southern England. So it does mean on Tuesday a brighter start, some spells of sunshine in places, but showery rain across Scotland, some colder air continuing to filter southwards as we go through the day. Some showers bubbling up, but plenty of sunny spells. And for everyone, particularly in the north and the west, feeling a little chillier, temperatures more like the low teens to mid-teens, still reaching around 17 or 18 towards southeast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change.
From the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News. Britain's news channel. Does Chopper need a coffee?
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change.
From the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee?
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City, dubbed America's mayor for his leadership after 9/11, and later a close ally of Donald Trump, he's in hospital in a critical but stable condition. That's according to his representatives this evening. A spokesperson for Giuliani says he's fighting with strength as supporters are urged to keep him in their thoughts. The president took to Truth Social this evening, saying, "Our fabulous Rudy Giuliani, a true warrior and the best mayor in the history of New York City by far, has been hospitalised and is in a critical condition. What a tragedy that he was treated so badly by the radical left lunatics, Democrats, all, and he was right about everything. They cheated on the elections, fabricated hundreds of stories, did anything possible to destroy our nation. And now, look at Rudy. So sad." President Donald J. Trump. We're not too sure, Niall Gardner, Victoria Churchill, exactly what his issue is. I assume it's an illness as opposed to some sort of accident. But he's in a critical condition, stable. Just your thoughts quickly on Rudy Giuliani. Who was he, for those who aren't familiar, and what does he mean to America?
Yeah, immensely sad news, and I did work for Rudy Giuliani's presidential campaign in 2008. He was known as America's mayor. He was the mayor of New York City during the time of the 9/11 attacks, and he was someone who really demonstrated tremendous courage, leadership at that moment, bringing the city together at an incredibly dark hour, actually, for not only for New York City but also for the United States as well. And Giuliani was also a superb mayor of New York City in terms of fighting, combating crime. I mean, he was the sort of Batman, style mayor of Gotham City, really. I mean, he took on the criminal networks, the gangs, and he won. New York went from being perhaps the most dangerous big city in the United States to one of the safest under his leadership. And he's come under a lot of fire, of course, in recent years. But the Rudy Giuliani that I know, that I remember well, is somebody who really loved his country.
Yeah.
He turned New York City, America's greatest city, around. I think New Yorkers owe him an immense debt of gratitude, and I remember him as a fearless crusader against the mob, against the criminals, and he won, actually. And he will always be remembered, for decades to come as someone who fought fearlessly for the people of New York City. And in my view, he was the best mayor in New York City's history. I hope he's going to win this fight, and he's going to recover and survive. And he's somebody who I think the United States owes an immense debt of gratitude to as well.
Okay. Victoria, any idea what the issue is with Rudy Giuliani tonight?
No, I don't in this case.
Just that he's critical. Okay. What's your memories of him?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think a funnier moment was back during the 2020 campaign where he was outside giving a press conference, kind of started sweating some of his hair dye off. So, like I said, I think that's something that comes to mind with younger viewers, but of course hoping for the best for him. And then, I think just when you look at mayors as a whole, right, they tend to be pretty much on the left side of the spectrum. Mayors of most major cities do tend to be from the left. And you also look at modern day when so many mayors, just like the mayor of DC, the very city we're sitting in right now, have really let a lot of crime get away. I think you ask time and time again, you see these teenagers going rogue after dark, and you ask, why isn't anybody giving them a slap on the wrist or more? And I think the leadership of a mayor working sometimes with police departments, I think sometimes in spite of police departments that do want to go ahead and prevent crime. I think a lot of the times the police chiefs aren't even actually able to do their jobs because of these leftist mayors. And I think for those that do want to know how to actually run a city, Rudy has a lot of examples that they can draw upon.
Yeah, indeed. Paul Cox, of course, the guy is in a critical but stable condition. He, thoughts and prayers that he makes a swift recovery. Are you familiar with Rudy Giuliani? It was his broken window theory in New York City which really cleaned up the cesspit of crime there. And I will say forever since, that kind of policy to crime, dealing with the small stuff, dealing with the broken windows, and the big stuff looks after itself.
Yes, I am familiar, and yes, I am familiar partly because of that, and partly because of the great work that he did with New York before, during, and after 9/11. He really did show himself to be exemplary politician during that time. I suspect that New York is going that way again, and that after Mandani we will need the future Giuliani, which I don't know where that comes from. Obviously from the centre-right wing of politics, obviously a Republican that's going to need to mop up this mess that Mandani is inevitably going to bring to New York. There is no example on planet Earth of Mandani, Zach Polanski, Jeremy Corbyn, socialism, neo-communism type politics ever leading to anything other than totalitarian authoritism. New York are in trouble, Ben. They don't know it because they're being sold magic beans. They're being told that...
well, they're not anymore. Mamdani... Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Mamdani came out a few days ago, maybe yesterday, and said, "Oh, I know I promised you guys everything for free grocery stores, free bus pass, everything. I promised the world to you." He came out yesterday and said, "Actually, guys, there's no money left." So it's already over, Paul.
But of course there isn't any money left, Ben. And yes, it is over. And it's not, it's not like my ideals are easy to apply either. But the ideals of that far left nonsense are never deliverable. Never, ever deliverable.
OK. Just a very quick word on Mamdani, Victoria. He came out and said the budget isn't there. We haven't got any money for any of the plans. Sorry, guys. You've been duped, basically.
I mean, I love it, right? Because he has been projected as this major socialist hero, an icon for America that all of these candidates are trying to emulate now. Of course, when we look at the midterms, you know, we have these super radical progressives running all over the country in states like Texas, in states like Michigan. I was just writing up earlier today, you know, the Michigan primary, that isn't until August. It's already heated up. You've got Democrats, one that's more of the centrist establishment pick, and two that are duking it out for the vote of that far left socialist wing of the party. And, you know, just even after the events of last week, one of the candidates, Mallory McMorrow, she was exposed to have had some tweets comparing Trump to Nazis. She deleted a bunch of those tweets before she ran. And she was asked by CNN host today whether she regretted any of that rhetoric or whether she believes it still rings true today. And, you know, like I said, even after last weekend, even after the calls from leaders and talking heads on both sides of the political aisle in toning down the rhetoric, she doubled down on this Trump, Nazi, Hitler comparisons, which, you know, I just think goes to show how crazy, how far left their party is willing to go, you know, even in this day and age.
Niall, who funds these far left lunatics? Is it still George Soros and his son Alex? I know Alex Soros is doing the rounds now. He seems to be taking up the mantle from his dad.
Well, it's a good question. Certainly there's a lot of Soros money that flows throughout Democrat and left-wing networks in the United States. I think there's a wide range of sources of funding for the you know, the left-wing machine in America. There's also growing spotlight actually on the influence of communist China actually in the United States in terms of Chinese funding in the US. And as for, you know, Mamdani, I think he's absolutely destroying New York City in the same way that Sadiq Khan is ruining London. Actually, they're very similar, you know, far left-wing politicians adopting communist-style policies, especially in the case of Mamdani. I mean, he's an outright communist, I think, and I think that you know, it's very sad to see the decline and decay that's taking place in New York City, one of the greatest cities in the world, with rising rampant crime, huge levels of social disorder, widespread, you know, drug taking openly in the streets of Manhattan, and a city that is you know, running out of or has run out of money already. And as my former boss Margaret Thatcher always used to say, the problem with socialist governments is that eventually they run out of other people's money. Well, and that's exactly what's happening in New York City. And it is, you know, extremely sad to see the decline and decay taking place in socialist-run New York under Mamdani. It's an absolute disgrace. We do need another Rudy Giuliani to clean up the city, actually, to clean up the crime-ridden streets, to clear off all the drug dealers and drug takers off the streets of the city. We need another Rudy, actually, and he was a truly great mayor.
Yeah, last time I was in New York was October the 7th last year, and you'll see the footage online. There were people waving Hamas and Hezbollah flags and all sorts. It was crazy. Yeah. I mean, I thought they were prescribed organisations here, but I mean, they were just running riot all across New York, waving those flags and calling for the eradication of Israel. So, very strange place. Anyway, right, Paul, hang tight for a second. We're going to come back to you after this next story, which I'm sure you'll be keen to talk about. Because for England and Scotland fans, the 2026 World Cup, which kicks off in June, could cost thousands of pounds to attend, with full trips now pushing beyond 20k for some families. So you take in travel, hotels, food, resale tickets. The prices are going up, they're rocketing, putting the tournament out of reach for many. BBC analysis suggests England fans could pay around £6,500 each just to follow the group stage, so that's 4 games. And at the extreme end, some resale tickets for the final have even been listed for over £1.7 million. Yes, that's £1.7 million for a single ticket to the World Cup final. I found today a quarter-final ticket at LA Stadium in July, which England could make, costing, drumroll please, £1,413 for one single ticket, 1,400 quid to watch England play. With me now is founder of ticketdata.com, Keith Pagello. Keith, great to see you. Is this unprecedented for a World Cup? I can't remember prices from any other tournament being this high, for example, for a single game, a quarter-final game at 1,400 quid each. Or is that normal? Or is that just me being totally out of touch?
No, thanks for having me. I would say that the way ticket prices for this World Cup are going are much different than any prior World Cup. In the US, ticket resale is just part of every major sport, and teams and venues also are pretty comfortable with charging basically market rate for what they think tickets can go for. So that's a lot of what we're seeing here. For Scotland, for the group stage games, the cheapest tickets are around $800 or $900 US. And then their game against Brazil is going for around $1,700 just to get in. And then for England, all three of the games are right around the $1,000 price point for the cheapest ticket.
I mean, look, I love Scotland. My wife's family are Scottish. I think it's a great place. But I wouldn't be paying $800 US to watch Scotland play. I'll tell you that. But England as well, £1,000, $1,000 a ticket. Is this just the market, though? Is this not just supply and demand, and this is what happens in sort of a capitalist environment? This is what most people call for. We're just talking about socialism. This is capitalism.
Sure, absolutely. That is kind of that is what buyers are willing to pay, at least at this point. Not to say, of course, there's still a month and change to go before the games start, so prices could go down. Actually, over the past 2 weeks, the prices for about 80% of the games have gone down a bit on resale sites. Not dramatically, but I think we're starting to see a little bit of, maybe buyers are a little bit willing to kind of scoff at these prices and sit tight a little bit and, wait and see if prices do continue to go down.
Also, Keith, it's not just match tickets. I'm not sure how much you've heard about this, but there's some news stories the other day about, was it New York, where the cost of a train ticket maybe from the city centre to one of the stadiums, the MetLife Stadium, is that New York, had gone from $12 up to something like $150. Yeah, so it's also transport as well. It just seems they're making money everywhere.
It is. I think there was a lot of outrage over that ticket price, which I do believe was $150 round trip, just to get to the game, which is only a couple-mile train ride. And needless to say, a lot of people think that's a bit ridiculous, but at least for now, they are kind of sticking to that price point for to get to the game. Fortunately, New York is a bit of an outlier there. Most of the other major host cities have said that tickets will remain in line with what they would normally call for, a regular event at that venue.
Okay. Last word, Keith. President Trump says it's going to be the biggest and most successful tournament ever because ticket sales are going through the roof. He says they're like hotcakes. Is that true?
If we're measuring success by total dollars of ticket revenue, then sure. I think it will certainly be number one in that regards, but a lot of people might say that there's a couple other factors that go into what's considered the most successful World Cup.
Yeah, okay, great stuff. I'll tell you how it would be a success. That's if England, for the first time since 1966, lift the trophy for the first time. If we do that, I'll say it's a great success. Keith, thanks very much, mate. Appreciate it. Founder of ticketdata.com. Let's get the thoughts of Paul Cox down the line. Paul, would you pay $1,000 to watch Scotland play?
No, I wouldn't. I genuinely wouldn't, Ben. But if you can find a Scot that would, I'll give you a tenner. There is no way that these people are gonna spend $1,000 trying to buy tickets. Well, they might do because they don't go there very often, Ben. I don't really want to get the Scottish GB News family offside. 50% of my family are Scottish as well. They know that their rubbish is they're rubbish. Their football is rubbish.
My mother-in-law would be on me. If she watches this, hopefully she's asleep, she'll be on me, my mother-in-law. Douglas has said on gbnews.com/you'll say, Ben, I'm Scottish and wouldn't open my curtains if they were playing outside. Dropping shortbread might help open up the Haitian defence. Also, England as well, though. $1,000 for a game just to watch England. I have to say, Paul, as a lover of football, I mean, football for me was best during Fergie versus Wenger, Highbury, Yapstam, Roy Keane, Vieira. That was when football was best. It peaked for me. Now it's just all money, grubby money. Everyone raising prices for transport, buying food at the stadium. You get some naff chips for about $10 a pop. I hate football now, really.
Well, you're talking about a time that was about 10 years maybe 13 years after the start of the Premier League, which was 1992. You're talking about mid-2000s Premier League. I'm a Portsmouth fan, so I haven't watched any of the Premier League since 2010, unfortunately. We've just stayed up in the Championship, so I'm very happy about that. Staying up is my goal now. But you're absolutely right. It's commercialised like everything else. Anything that can be monetised is being monetised now. It used to be the sport. I don't want to harp at this point too much. But it used to be the sport of the working class, Ben, and I would say now it's becoming less so, particularly the Premier League, maybe even the Championship. It's just not accessible. Tickets are ridiculous. You know, your team, Arsenal, Ben, which, you know, may even win the league this year if they don't slip up. Let's see how they get on. But they, you know, you go and see an Arsenal game. I'm sure you've taken one of the boys, or maybe you've not both of the boys, to an Arsenal game. That's an arm and a leg as well, Ben. The experience is fantastic for them. They're getting to see some of the best football available in this country right now. But that's going to cost you a £400 or £500 minimum. Just take the boys to that, I'm sure, Ben.
Arsenal have the most expensive tickets in Europe, and you know, I love Arsenal. Maybe not as much as I used to, but the Emirates ain't no Highbury, let me tell you that. Niall Gardner, are you bothered about the World Cup? Is it going to be great for America? President Trump seems to be kind of infatuated with it, saying it's going to be the best tournament ever. But will it be really if real football fans can't afford to go?
Well, I think it's going to be a great tournament, and certainly President Trump has fully embraced the World Cup, and despite the very high, even exorbitant prices being charged, I expect the stadiums will ultimately be full, especially for all of the big games. And I wouldn't be surprised if you have 50 to 100,000 England supporters coming over to the United States for the World Cup. Not all will have tickets, but it'll be a big adventure. And I think that the World Cup is also a huge generator of income for the for the US economy as well. There's no doubt about it, and the prices are being dictated by market forces. I think where there's a real issue is for example, New York City charging $150 for a train ticket to New Jersey that would normally cost about $12. And this is all the doing of Mamdani and his socialist government, charging these exorbitant fees. So hopefully there'll be a big backlash against that kind of price gouging by a socialist regime in New York City. But as for ticket prices, they're being dictated by the free market, and that dictates as well, US sports in general. Americans are used to paying very high prices to see American football games or basketball matches and other sport here, and so Americans are quite used to it, and it's all basically a free market system in terms of ticket prices in the United States. But let's see an end to the socialist regimes in places like New York City charging, in this case, England fans $150 to ride a train to New Jersey. I think the Uber ride is probably about $20 or something. So let's see an end to this kind of socialist dictatorial control.
Indeed. Victoria, your take on this before we move on?
Well, it's an interesting position, right? Because, of course, I'm a capitalist. I don't think there should be any kind of intervention in the free market. But I do think that anytime when we have global sport come to America, we kind of F it up. Right, like you look at the Miami Grand Prix just this weekend, they almost didn't have a race because it was raining. When was the last time you saw a
well, it was
Grand
a lightning
Prix?
Storm.
Well, lightning storm, but I mean still, right, like we've seen these racers race in very dramatically changing conditions in the middle of races, right? Sometimes they've done a tire change, so the rain is coming in the last 5 laps and they've got to just deal with it, and unfortunately they end up crashing, but like that's part of the entertainment, right? But you even look back to, for example, the first Las Vegas Grand Prix just a handful of years ago.
Oh, it was awful. Drains.
The drain cover, right? It sparked the bottom of somebody's car, and they had to, do a practice session or a qualifying session, like in the middle of the night. Everybody was ticked the heck off. And so, like, I don't know why, for some reason, we can't get global sport right. I would like to see that righted. And, you know, in Vegas, we've seen it go the opposite way, that the first year they were charging these exorbitant prices, and now, like, they can barely fill people to go. And I think that's really what happens, is you set up these sky-high expectations, and then it falters, and people are like, people that do have the, you know, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to shell out for the most flashy experience, they end up going, what the heck was this, and I'm never coming back again. And you know, on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have it done right. You have the Texas Grand Prix that happens in October.
Austin.
You know, yeah, exactly.
I love it. It's my favorite.
COTA,
it's my
Circuit
favorite
of the Americas. I've never been. I really want to go. Unfortunately, it always lands like 2 weeks before the election, so I'm always really busy. But you know, maybe one day, 20 years down the line, when I'm not being a talking head on TV before the election, maybe then I can make it to a Grand Prix.
COTA, Circuit of the Americas, is the best Grand Prix on the F1 calendar. Just worth pointing out as well, I think what the American owners, the new owners of F1, have done to the sport, they've ruined it. They've completely trashed the sport. F1 used to be playboys, fast cars, smoking cigarettes, you know, cool as hell. Now it's all, you know, no offence, Victoria, Americanized. We will win, fireworks and parades. It's just so lame. And don't get me started on the new cars either. Right, some quick comments. Tammy said North Bank Highbury was where the action was. Yes, Tammy, we are the North Bank. We are the North Bank. North Bank Highbury. And David said Celtic done it today. Yes. And there was one other. What was it? Tammy said Arsenal was best with Charlie Nicholas. There was another great comment I've missed somewhere. Sorry, I've missed it. Anyway, that's it. Paul, I think the last time Pompey had any success, they won the FA Cup, then got relegated, didn't they, in the same season?
Yeah, they did actually. Well, we actually won the FA Cup in 2008, and then in 2010 we made the FA Cup final again, lost the FA Cup final a couple of weeks later, got relegated. Dark days, Ben, but thanks for bringing it up.
Bankrupted yourself to win the FA Cup. What a good move that was. Anyway, only joking. Hope to see you back in the Prem soon.
Thank you, mate.
Right, gbnews.com/your say. Someone said I 100% agree about F1. Marlies, thank you for that. Bob said football fans are soft now. Where have all the fights gone? And Andrew said, hello Andrew, good morning. Just wait till the Olympics in 2028, the cost will be astronomical. Oh, this is the one. Call me old-fashioned. I love this comment. You said VAR, the video assistant referee in the Premier League, takes so long now they can bring in commercials. During the Six Nations rugby, adverts were screened during injury breaks, etc. They do it in the USA. I was watching the Spurs-Villa game today. During substitutions, the American networks broadcasting the games, they play quick commercials on the side of the pitches. The football goes to a really small box and they play a commercial. So no doubt that will be happening in the UK fairly soon. Right, let's move on. Shall we look at the front page of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow? Big story. Welfare pays for 600,000 households where basically being on benefits is more lucrative than going to work. So the headline reads, welfare pays more than work for 600,000 households. Niall, does this surprise you? That it's doesn't, for 600,000 households, no point going to work, just go on the sponge.
It doesn't surprise me, but it's absolutely appalling, really. And I think that, you know, a big difference between the UK and the US right now is that in the United States, there's definitely an anti-welfare state mindset. And I think that, you know, in the US, I mean, the vast majority of people work, and they work very hard. And that's a key reason why the US economy is so incredibly successful. When you look at, you know, GDP per capita in the United States, it is far, far greater than the vast majority of European countries, including the UK. And one of the reasons for that is that the American people really overwhelmingly work. Britain has a much larger, you know, welfare state per capita, and I do think that if the UK is serious about turning its economy around, and if the UK is serious about rebuilding its defences and you know, having a Royal Navy that can fight across the world, we need to see a huge reduction of welfare spending, more spending, of course, on the military. A lower tax system in Britain. The welfare state really corrodes and erots society, and it is you know, a mecca to socialism, basically.
But what about those who need it? It is meant to be a support
There's
network.
A small minority of people who maybe need some kind of support, but the vast majority of people should be working hard turning the economy around, working for the future of their nation, for their children, for their descendants. And the size of the welfare state in Britain is an absolute scandal. And it's a key reason for British economic decline. And it's far better to spend all that money on rebuilding British defences, turning Britain once again into a world-class military power with one of the best navies in the world, second only to the United States. That should be the case. Take the money away from the welfare state, get people back to work, deport all the illegal migrants back to where they came from, actually. Large numbers of people on welfare are actually migrants to the UK. If you secure Britain's borders, deport illegals, send as many migrants as you can back to the countries they came for, I think you'll vastly reduce welfare spending in Britain and turn Britain once again into a world-beating military power. This was just 3 generations ago the world superpower. Let's make Britain once again a real world superpower. In order to do that, you've got to cut the size of the welfare state, get people back to work, back on their bikes, as Norman Tebbit said when he was Conservative Party chairman under Margaret Thatcher. And we need to see a completely different mindset in the UK that values hard work, the entrepreneurial spirit, and an end to this vast welfare system.
Sounds good to me. The foreign national bill for welfare, I think it's 10 billion quid a year that we spend on foreign nationals. However, a big chunk of the welfare bill in total is the triple lock pensioners, which obviously shouldn't be touched, I argue, just leave them at the head alone. But there are vast savings to be made elsewhere.
That's very different, of course, to the welfare state, really. I mean, these are pensioners who have earned their pensions, really, and this is a fundamental difference.
Analysis by the Tories, this is where this story's come from, Victoria, shows that 16,000 of those 600,000 households received more than 60 grand a year in benefit payments, almost twice the average annual take-home pay. 16,000 UK homes getting more than 60 grand a year. The figures will provoke calls, it says, for an overhaul of the £155 billion benefits budget. That's insane, is it?
It's outrageous.
Isn't it? £155 billion on welfare.
Yeah, I mean, I hate excess government spending, whether it's on this side of the Atlantic or the other. Of course, we've talked about numerous times on this show, we have our own problems with welfare fraud, particularly in states like Minnesota. Of course, that's all being litigated by the feds here in DC. They've had a lot of alarms raised and they're looking into it very heavily. But you know, again, I think the other thing that you have to look at is that it's really a self-fulfilling cycle, right? Is that you have these people that are on these benefits. A lot of the times they're not even using them properly, and then you have multiple generations of families that get locked in this, which I think is completely alarming. Niall, it sounded like you almost want to make Britain great again with what you were saying there. I think there's definitely some lessons to be learned from what the current administration is doing here. Of course, blocking large numbers of people from coming. I'm not one of these people, like some people, particularly on the right, are saying have no immigration. I think of people like, of course, Irina Zarutskaya, the one that got murdered in that train down in North Carolina. She had come here. I think she was had just gotten or was about to get her driver's license. She was working in a pizza shop. I don't mind if those kinds of migrants come over, immigrants. They absorb U.S. culture. They want to work hard. They want to, work themselves to the bone, really, for a better life for themselves. I have no problem with that. But if you come here and you take advantage of people like that are paying taxes and paying into the system that they may get some small smidge of a benefit from, and you go out and you just sit on your butt your whole life and think that you're just going to get handouts, I don't think those people should come to this country at all.
There's an interesting graph here on the Telegraph story. Proportions of households headed by a person of working age receiving over 30 grand in benefits. Can you guess which nation, which nationalities of households top the benefits bill?
I'll make a guess. I think most likely Pakistan comes very.
Pakistani households are third highest.
Oh, third. Okay. Then you have Afghanistan, Iraq.
Well, the top households, Bangladeshis are the biggest. Then it's just defined as Arab. This is from the DWP Family Resource Survey. Then it's Pakistanis third. Other ethnic group is fourth, whatever that is.
Yes.
Mixed or multiple is fifth. I don't quite know.
And if I could just respond to that, it demonstrates that mass migration to the UK has been an absolute disaster for Britain, actually, and the British the British people are funding large numbers of migrants who have come into the UK in recent decades and are now living off the welfare state. This is the reality of mass migration. It has to end. And the UK has to, frankly, deport those foreign nationals who are not working, not contributing anything at all to British society. And you could dramatically cut the size of the welfare state by securing Britain's borders and deporting all of those foreign nationals who don't work. They shouldn't be in the country. What are they doing in the UK in the first place, actually? It's an absolute disgrace. It's the biggest scandal of our time, really, isn't it? I mean, the whole mass migration drive has been absolutely hugely destructive for Great Britain at a massive cost to the British taxpayer. This has to end, and I don't see how any government can tolerate what's happening in Britain. This is the destruction of a once truly great nation, actually being dragged down into the mud, basically, by vast socialist welfare systems, open borders, mass migration, and it's ruining Britain. We need to absolutely make Britain great again as a nation that really stands up on its own 2 feet, with secure borders, defends national sovereignty, self-determination, and removes all of those who frankly don't contribute anything whatsoever to Great Britain, and they're paid for by the British taxpayer, and this has to end.
Yeah, well said. And if I'm reading correctly, 12% of Bangladeshi families in the UK are getting an average of 35 to 40k in benefits. The lowest group, according to this graph from the DWP, is Indians, apparently. Indian households claim the least, then it's white families. But yeah, the top nationalities, Bangladeshis, Arabs, Pakistanis. So there we go. Very good. £155 billion a year welfare bill. You wonder why we've got no ships or navy. Right, let's get a very quick look at your weather, and we'll come back in just a tick. Don't go anywhere.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Rather cloudy today, but lots of places will be dry this bank holiday with some spells of sunshine, but there is the risk of some heavy showers developing, particularly across the south. But this morning, lots of cloud across the UK, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, murky in places. Best of the sunshine first thing across parts of Scotland and the far south of England, but the sunshine will trigger some heavy showers here as we move through into the afternoon. Some brighter breaks developing elsewhere, but largely dry for most. But some colder air and showers filtering into northern Scotland. Here temperatures 10 to 13 degrees, but in the sunshine 18 or 19 degrees across southern England. Into Monday evening, the heavy showers across the south will ease away. Further showers, though, are expected across much of Scotland, and these will push southwards as we head into the early hours, and winds starting to come from a northerly direction. A few showers reaching parts of Northern Ireland into the evening time, and some sunshine to end the day across northern parts of England, and a mixed picture for the rest of England into Wales. Still the odd rumble of thunder possible as the showers slowly ease. Overnight we'll see some longer clear spells starting to develop, some showers in between and under the clear skies, and light winds across England and Wales. We could see a few mist and fog patches forming. Some longer spells of rain still possible across the northern parts of Scotland. Here temperatures down to 4 or 5 degrees for most of us, generally in high single figures, low double digits for southern England. So it does mean on Tuesday a brighter start, some spells of sunshine in places, but showery rain across Scotland, some colder air continuing to filter southwards as we go through the day. Some showers bubbling up, but plenty of sunny spells. And for everyone, particularly in the north and the west, feeling a little chillier, temperatures more like the low teens to mid-teens, still reaching around 17 or 18 towards southeast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back. Let's get the latest on the Iran situation, which is developing over the past couple of hours. Tehran is calling for the war to end in 30 days as the US reviews a 14-point plan to end hostilities. However, the crucial point is none of it includes concessions or giving up their nuclear uranium, the enriched uranium. So I think it's just a complete waste of time. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's get the thoughts of Senior Director of Government Relations at the Foundation for Defence of Democracy's Action, Connor Pfeiffer. Connor, great to see you. What's your take on what we've seen over the past, I'd say 24 hours? And then also, if you just could explain for our viewers and listeners what has happened really in layman's terms.
Ben, it's great to be with you. I think a couple things to keep in mind. First off, this plan has shown a little bit of movement towards the U.S. position, but not a ton really. The Iranians want to basically do two things. They want to end the blockade that is strangling their economy. Almost $500 million a day in economic activity is being strangled by the U.S. blockade. And secondly, they want to kick the can down the road on negotiations, not make concessions before they have to, not have any issues where they have to make concessions on the nuclear file. You may have seen a few hours ago, President Trump announced Project Freedom, which is going to be an effort led by the U.S. starting at tomorrow morning, Monday morning, Middle Eastern time, for the U.S. Central Command and other authorities to coordinate the movement of neutral shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. We'll see how the Iranians react to that. Importantly, however, the president threatened that if those ships trying to move through the Strait of Hormuz are threatened, the U.S. could have an armed response to that. So this is a test for the Iranians to see whether or not they will attack neutral shipping that's trying to exit the strait. There are hundreds of ships trapped in the Persian Gulf since the start of hostilities in late February, and so this is an effort to try to get those ships out. We'll see if the Iranians let those ships leave.
Yeah, and I find this story, this part of the conflict, this story so fascinating because dozens of ships stranded and indeed their crew. We forget about the crew, the humanitarian situation there. You've got captains, you've got seafarers, maybe dozens per ship, all with, I suggest, dwindling resources, maybe comms issues. They're sitting ducks in the Strait of Hormuz. The IRGC could attack them at any time. Maybe they're not getting paid because the cargo on board hasn't been delivered and all sorts going on. Fuel. What kind of situation would be going on board some of those vessels, the humanitarian situation?
Well, Ben, as you can imagine, obviously they could have the ability to potentially dock at ports in the Persian Gulf, whether in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, or other ports, but obviously not a great situation for them to be trapped now for over 60 days, unable to transit the Strait of Hormuz with their cargo, not on schedule. And so this is an effort by the president to make sure that we can start getting some of those ships out of the Persian Gulf through the strait. Obviously, it'll take more effort beyond that to resume the movement of ships back how they were before the war. But at this point, getting some of those ships out seems to be a priority for the administration. But of course, the key here is whether the IRGC lets those ships leave. We saw a few weeks ago the Iranian foreign minister, the same foreign minister that's been communicating with many European governments in recent days, announced that Iran would allow ships to transit the Strait of Hormuz, and then the IRGC promptly started attacking ships that were making an attempt to transit the strait. So we've seen the president talk about how there are issues with who's in charge in Iran. The Rump regime in Tehran is heavily divided. It seems to be the IRGC that's in charge here. And so if the IRGC does not accede to allowing ships through the strait, we could see additional attacks on shipping, which, based on the president's statement earlier tonight, could prompt the U.S. response and resumption of hostilities. But we'll have to wait and see what happens Monday morning.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I dread to think what would happen if the IRGC did start unloading fire on those civilian vessels just trying to get out. I don't think it would be a good idea for them to do that. But just finally, Connor, the president is being very patient with Iran, and he has said himself he doesn't want to bomb the hell out of them, but that's what it will come to. When will his patience run out?
Well, Ben, I think there's a couple dynamics that are important to keep in mind right now. As I mentioned, $500 million a day in economic activity is not happening for the Iranians because of the U.S. blockade. On top of that, the U.S. government, through the Treasury, has launched Operation Economic Fury, which is a maximum pressure campaign to constrain all available sources of income for the IRGC and for the regime globally, seizing accounts, sanctioning teapot refineries in China, for example, that are purchasing Iranian oil. And so the regime is under immense pressure here. But I think if the regime does not allow neutral shipping through, does not start to allow the strait to reopen, if there's no progress in negotiations, you could see the patience of the president and the administration end here. But of course, the U.S. is keeping the pressure up in the meantime.
Okay, great stuff. Connor, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Come back on the show when you can, please. And yeah, have a good week ahead. Connor Pfeiffer. And gbnews.com/your say. Let us know your thoughts on that, ladies and gents. And I am sure the IRGC would not be so silly tomorrow morning as to unleash fire on those vessels that have been trapped in the Strait of Hormuz, because the President would unleash fury, not just economic fury, but hellfire, I suggest, on the IRGC. Should we take a look at, let's have a look at the front page of The Sun very quickly. We've already talked about it, about the World Cup. What a World Cup stitch-up. This is a story about £26 a week staff make £130 balls. So the footballs that will be used at the World Cup here in America from June are made by pretty much sweatshop staff in Asia, I suggest. £26 a week staff. FIFA are raking in millions from sales. I seem to remember, though, Paul Cox, these kind of stories do the rounds every tournament, every World Cup. Sometimes the Sun will do it with the shirts. They'll say, oh, England shirts cost 90 quid. What a rip-off, which is true, they are a rip-off. But they're costing some sweatshop workers in, I don't know, Vietnam, £2 to make.
Yeah, it's good business, Ben, isn't it? That's what I'd say. Obviously, there's a moral aspect to this, and that initial part, I was attempting a joke. This is a worry, and we do see this.
I was going to say, you're going to start a sweatshop, Paul.
Yeah, well, do you know what, Ben? If you're in, let's go 50-50. But I would look. We see these stories. We see these stories all the time, Ben, and it is a concern, of course, because we look at this from the perspective and through the prism of our Western world, where there's a lot of wealth. And I hate to be the person to say this, by the way, but if you look at the economy in which these footballs are being built, let's just take this story verbatim for a moment, then £26 a week could be the average wage, and it could be, you know, they could be happy with that. What we're trying to do here often is take the people from that economy and put them in our economy. And if you got paid £26 a week here, of course that would be a travesty. Nobody would take the job. But the reason that they do this, and they get it manufactured outside of the Western countries, is because the labour is cheaper. I don't know what to say about this story, really, other than, yes, it can make you feel a bit squeamish. Yes, the profit margins are high. That's capitalism. That's the free market. At one end of the market are people willing to do the work for £26 a week. At the other end of the market are people willing to pay the £130 for the footballs. That's how these people make a lot of money. We forget this stuff goes on all the time. And it's this kind of idealism that it gets extrapolated out across all of our politics, and everything gets a bit skewed. So we start measuring things by the wrong paradigm, I think, sometimes, Ben.
Also, Paul, on the front page of The Sun, just a little box at the top, it says Zach Polansky, no ban on hate chant. Just moving the dial a little bit. Zach Polansky will not back calls to ban the Globalise the Intifada chant at pro-Gaza rallies. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said the cry was extreme racism, but the Green leader said a bar would not make Jews' lives safer. Polansky had an extraordinary round today on the morning political shows on Sunday. He was absolutely skewered by Sky News' Trevor Phillips. He wouldn't dare, of course, do GB News, Zach Polansky. He's too much of a wet wipe. But Trevor Phillips absolutely skewered him. And he's now saying, Polansky, he wouldn't ban those calls.
Look, Zach Polansky is a danger, not just to the UK, but to his own brethren. Zach Polansky is a Jewish person from a Jewish family. Of course, banning this chant would go some way to helping the Jewish people. I'm sure the families of those at Golders Green last week would appreciate if someone like Zach Polansky would come out on their side, because it's not the Keir Starmers, the Nigel Farages, the Kemi Badnocks that need convincing of this. It is the Zach Polanskys, the enablers, the collusionists of this type of stuff. Of course he will not condone a ban of this. I would say 95% of his supporters believe this to be perfectly okay. This is where the divide is split. The divide is split by the trifecta of people that tend to hate Jewish people, which is far left, anti-capitalists, and some far right, Ben, and everybody else. So what you end up with is, by the way, a society that breeds anti-Semitism is a society that always fails, because it's easy to go for that minority. It's an acceptable minority to attack. And if you can win over and attack a minority like that through someone like Zach Polanski, then you can come for any minority or even a majority, Ben. Zach Polanski is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with you, but what's also more concerning is the fact that they are so high in the polls. They have swathes of people willing to vote for him and them. I mean, the whole party is a walking, talking contradiction. The deputy leader is, what, was he celebrating October the 7th? He said something very borderline.
Because I can't remember the exact tweet, I won't repeat it, but it was very much supportive of what went on October the 7th. That was Mothin Ali. But look, this, of course, that polls are about what's popular at the time. What's popular right now on the left is the Greens as a reaction to what's going on with Keir Starmer's Labour. Keir Starmer's Labour is dangerous for my money. The Greens are way beyond that. I mean, I'd go so far as betting that at some point some of the views within the Green Party would be prescribed as terrorists.
Well, there was some council candidate. Was it a council candidate? Well, I shouldn't talk about council elections, so let's move on. Victoria, can you go through the streets of America chanting "Globalise the Intifada"? Is that fine?
Well,
it's free speech, right?
Yeah, you can, because it's free speech, but you know, it'll definitely raise some alarms for people, and you know, see who you're associating with.
So just enlighten me. When it comes to the First Amendment and free speech, are there any limits? Can I walk down the streets and say, call for the murder of some political figure?
Well, you can, right? Because you've seen, for example, it was Kathy Griffith back in the day
had the comedian.
Right, and she had the Trump severed head that she was holding up, and so of course there's a limit of free speech versus, of course, what can be broadcast on TV. So the FCC does, control somewhat what does get broadcast, and of course we're seeing some of that debate right now with Jimmy Kimmel. Of course, the day before, I believe, the White House Correspondents' Dinner last week, he had basically called Melania, I believe it was an expectant widow was the phrase. And of course that ended up being almost terrifyingly prophetic with the events of last Saturday. But when it comes to things like the FCC, of course, there's this debate, right? Because now Trump and Melania have both called for Kimmel to be canceled. And he is saying that it is within his free speech rights to say what he does on his show, even though a lot of people will find that, abhorrent, frankly. And then, of course, there is, some limits on schools, particularly K through 12, and of course some of that debate on what is and cannot be allowed on college campuses when somebody's free speech, particularly in the case of Jewish students, is seen as a threat, primarily. Free speech in the case of these, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian activists, particularly on college campuses. Jewish students see that as a threat, and of course, where does that, freedom versus security debate?
Can they go around college campuses saying "Globalise the Intifada"?
Yeah, they do, absolutely.
Right. With no, okay, that's fine. So that's free speech, First Amendment. I think the only case where, Niall, you would get nicked for threatening a politician is threatening to kill the president.
Well, I think direct threats against politicians are illegal, and often authorities act against them. And in the case of Jimmy Kimmel and his comments, very distasteful, nasty, comments. It's not a cancellation issue, I think, with Kimmel. It's the issue of someone with a very high-profile platform on a major U.S. network. In this case, a network owned by Disney. Jimmy Kimmel, has the right to say what he wants in his own time, on his own, podcast or whatever. But he shouldn't be saying this to an audience of millions of people on a network owned by the Disney company. In my view, Kimmel's, comments about, predicting the death of the president and that Melania Trump would be a widow, absolutely nasty, horrible, vicious remarks. And if Disney, of course, had a spine here, they would remove him, and then he can make his comments on his own little podcast somewhere. But he shouldn't be making these comments on a major network that is owned by the Disney corporation. And so I don't think it's an issue of cancelling here. He has freedom of speech, but he shouldn't be bankrolled by a big US corporation making incredibly vicious and horrific comments about the president.
Okay, so Victoria, just finally, as the American. No, are you American?
Yes, I have American citizenship and British citizenship. I both.
Denounce your citizenship.
I both.
You got dual citizenship.
Yeah.
What are you laughing at, Paul?
I don't know. It's just the way you said denounced his citizenship, as if we were discarding Niall in some way, just because he happens to be half American now. He's as British as they come, Ben. Listen to him.
American.
He worked for Margaret Thatcher, for goodness' sake.
I know, but Steve Hilton.
Well said, Paul.
But Steve Hilton, who is the Republican runner for governor in California, he's as British as they come. But he got rid of his UK citizenship. He's now American. So Victoria, as the American here, when you see us talking about banning a chant such as globalise the Intifada, does that make you sort of cringe a little bit, a bit sort of unnatural to you?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked on this very show that I think despite all of our similarities between the US and the UK, one of the things that Americans as a whole, I think, wish the UK would do better, because we do kind of see ourselves as equal and as understanding. Of course, we think back on J.D. Vance going back and telling the UK basically to get a handle on free speech if they want to keep being our allies, because I think when you talk about relationships between governments, freedom of speech is vital in that, right? And having a vibrant, robust political system like we do here in the US.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think where we see the beauty and the ugliness of it here in the US is that people can have these very vile ideas, and then you can have people on the opposite side that will call them out, and that's kind of how we weed them out for the most part.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Just to add to Victoria's remarks there, that also at the same time the US government has the right to remove, for example, foreign nationals in the United States who are supporting Hamas.
They're not protected by the First Amendment, are they?
Yeah, and so if you're on a
did that story on
a student visa
on Hamdi, he was brought in by CARE, the Islamic Relations Org from the UK, to kind of do some rabble rousing, and the US sent him back to England.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can remove foreign nationals or people on visas, for example, who are supporting Hamas, and this administration, of course, has removed a significant number of Islamist radicals who have been backing Hamas, and rightly so. Let's get rid of these evil people.
Okay, one more very quick story. The RSPCA wants families to think again before taking the kids crabbing this bank holiday weekend, well, Monday tomorrow. The charity says crabs can feel pain and stress when pulled from the sea and kept in buckets. But fishing groups have branded the call absolutely ridiculous, warning it could hit seaside businesses and kill off a British seaside tradition. Nobody's killing the crabs, Paul. Just 10 seconds, 20 seconds. No one's killing them. You're just taking them out to sea and putting them in a bucket of water.
Yeah, I know. It's. I was trying to stop myself laughing here. I'll try to be as quick as possible, Ben. This is harmless family fun. It's a little bucket that you've bought. It's got a little face on it. You've got a little net. You've been ripped off by the beach shop. You've taken your kids down there. You're desperate to find something to entertain them because they won't shut up. All they want is ice cream. You finally find something that gets them interested. It's crabbing, and then you're told by the government you can't do that, or by these people, because it's cruel. Give us a break. Let us entertain the kids. It's nothing wrong with it.
What is it? It's woke nonsense. Right, that's it. That's it for tonight. Paul, thank you very much for tonight. Niall, thank you, and Victoria, thank you, and indeed, biggest thank yous to viewers and listeners. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm covering for Bev, midnight in the UK. Until then, sweet dreams. Have a great bank holiday, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye. Mwah.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Rather cloudy today, but lots of places will be dry this bank holiday with some spells of sunshine, but there is the risk of some heavy showers developing, particularly across the south. But this morning, lots of cloud